they've been integrating it into your media.
100%.
And not only is the news constantly about it, but look at your social medias. I bet you if you pull up Twitter right now and you look at the little search bar that shows you all the trending stuff, the very first thing you get is COVID.
Oh, well, there's 100%
YouTube, COVID.
Right here at the bottom, there's 100% a check your local COVID-19
resources
thing on this video. Like, it's 100% that
it's
little
there.
CDC tag of like, which is very interesting, right? How it's like, that's been the thing lately is like the CDC is the only approved resource for COVID information, right?
What happened to the WHO, you know?
No. They're not. Nope.
World Health Organization?
I mean, they're saying things, but if you look at anything, like I said, anybody makes a post or does any type of information or anything based on COVID-19, it will immediately put that tag on there.
It doesn't even have to be about it.
You need to go check the CDC.
You just have to
just say the name.
You just have to put COVID, like somewhere in text or mention it in like while you're speaking. It might not even be the subject matter of your actual content,
100%.
but because the word COVID was detected, the little CDC thing gets put on there, and it's like, this may be, you better check the real information because whatever this guy's saying might not be real information.
You better get the real source, Jack.
And that only comes from the CDC. It's just like, wow, that's strange, man. That in itself is that forms of soft censorship.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this and totally redeem yourself.
Yo, what is up, internet? Welcome back to another episode of Three Averagely Intelligent Dudes Discussing Dangerous Ideas. Today, we're going to talk about, it's kind of a recap of a conversation we had last year, probably one of our first conversations. We're going to be talking about the coronavirus again. This conversation is kind of sparked by what I saw with certain governors starting to repeal some of their restrictions on their citizens.
Yeah, a lot of current events going on.
Yeah, and allowing people to kind of open back up and get back in the gist of things. And so as we get back into the gist of things and kind of reopen our country, I guess you can say, we're going to kind of take a look at how the coronavirus has affected our country and how it's kind of evolved over the last year or so, and just kind of compare where we're at now compared to where we started. So.
COVID to electric boogaloo. I'm ready to go.
It's the second part.
It's like it never ended.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's crazy. How have y'all's personal experiences been with it? Like, what do you think over the last year? Because I've seen a lot of things online of people just being like, man, I can't wait till this is over, man. This has been such a bloody, and I'm just like, I don't really think too much of it. Like, it didn't really affect my life that much, personally.
Yeah, no, the only difference for me is that I wear a mask when I go into buildings now.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah.
And it feels like the message is wear the mask for the better good.
Yeah.
And I'm no scientist. You know, I'm not a virologist, so it's tough for me to, have like an educated opinion when it comes to like whether or not I should or should not wear a mask. There's been tons of information from the CDC and the WHO that's been contradicting, and then there's the neck gaiter stuff. So it's like really hard for like a non-chemist to wrap their head around, you know?
That's true.
But we're here being averagely intelligent, and I would say like if it looks like it's benefiting, then maybe we should do it. But
I only wear one because people make me wear it.
Yeah, I don't
like,
think I don't think like I would ever be like, okay, there's no coronavirus, I'm just gonna wear a mask.
Yeah,
that wouldn't make sense to me because it's like, I mean, I'm not walking around spitting at people, and a lot of things aren't that super viral. You know what I mean? Like, just because I cough into my hand and you're 5 feet away, it doesn't mean you're gonna get some disease.
It's so funny too because I'm very. Ever since this first came about, I've been the guy with the big ass bullhorn saying that this isn't a big deal, right? Now, I've taken some L's in this conversation, I got to admit, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit when we talk about kind of the death toll and things. So I feel like I've taken some L's in this, but I've also taken some wins in this conversation too. And so anyways, I've been this big proponent of it. But the other day, I was at a house party, right? It was like this big ass house party for this person's album release, okay? And so I'm staying at a friend's house, and my friend is kind of cautious about COVID-19 and whatnot. And so he was like, I don't care if you come, like, you can stay at my house and all that stuff, you go to the party, but just please wear a mask. And I'm like, all right, I'll wear the mask. It's like, whatever, no big deal. Again, like you said, somebody makes me, I put it on. I don't care, and that's it. It's not like this huge burden on my life.
Inconvenience.
Yeah, you know what I mean? I prefer not to, but whatever. So I walk up in this party. I'm the only dude wearing a mask. the only dude. And I'm like, dang, now I look like the guy who's like, COVID.
It's like
I'm super worried about it.
It's been projected onto you now. It's like, instead of being the guy who's like, it's not a big deal, you're like, everyone be scared. We're all gonna die.
And it was so funny. But
wild,
I'll tell you this, though. It was actually one scenario where I was actually glad I was wearing the mask. We're just in this, it's LA, which is already like has a really hard time with this, supposedly, I guess, due to the numbers. And we're just in such a tight, small space, and it's packed to the gills. And I'm just like, somebody's getting it here. There's just no way nobody gets it here. Which I don't know. I don't know if anybody did. I haven't heard anything about it. But
well, the good news is if they get it, there's a real low chance they're going to be like injured permanently or die.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some that get it real fucking bad.
Yeah, some people really got saucy.
Yeah, and when you were talking about personal experiences, we don't necessarily know for sure that my grandmother, through not blood but marriage, possibly died from COVID right at the heart of when it was hitting like the Northeast really hard. We don't really know. But damn, like it looks like people really die from it. And not millions and millions, but a lot.
People die.
Yeah, people die.
Like, that's what I said. Like, when I first came out and I was like, this is fake news, people really backlashed at me. And I was like, look, I'm not saying that it's not a real virus. Like, it exists. It's a thing. And it can kill you. But lots of things out here can kill you.
You actually have a much higher chance of things that we consider almost impossible killing you than you of dying of COVID. You literally have a better chance of dying from being struck by lightning, not just getting struck by lightning, but you have a better chance of dying by being struck by lightning than dying if you caught COVID. And that's if you catch it. So it's like, were you worried about lightning?
So I mean, this is
now
true.
Lightning doesn't happen all the time, and you can see it and stuff like that. So it's like, it's hard to compare them, but when you just talk about sheer probability,
I feel what you're saying. But what I did, I think this is one of the L's I've kind of taken. So come to find out, coronavirus was the third leading cause of death in America last year, which is actually pretty scary, I guess. If you're thinking like there's a list of things out there that can kill you, coronavirus jumped up really high on that list. I mean, immediately in the year that it came out, it fell right behind cancer and heart disease.
And it's not like it just like was like, oh, they're just mislabeling getting the flu. It's like, no, it took flu numbers and all those numbers and was like, way over that.
And so that really, that's where I felt like I took an L. I was like, maybe after I was looking up these death numbers from, it says that since March 2020, about 544,000 more Americans have died than would have in a normal year. Now, this isn't just strictly to COVID or whatever, but a lot of them are due to COVID.
Comorbidities.
Yeah. What does that mean?
That's the one where it's like if they already had a condition and then they got COVID, which they were never going to recover from based on their current condition.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people say the numbers got inflated, I guess.
Well, it's not necessarily, like, the way I look at it, I loved when I listened to a podcast with Dave Asprey, and he was interviewing Dr. Mark Hyman, who's a functional medicine doctor, and he was saying about how the way to look at it was really more about, and I mean, this is his opinion, but he was saying the way to look at it is more so that two pandemics collided with each other, which created this sort of like heightened response from both of them. You have this like unhealthy pandemic in the sense that Americans are just some of the most unhealthy people on the planet. It's one of the most unhealthy countries in the entire world. I mean, 88% of our population is metabolically unstable and unfit. I think it's like almost a third of people are pre-diabetic, or some crazy amount of number is like pre-diabetic, and even more than that are diabetic or something like that. Like there's a lot of health issues that were already at play. And from what I've seen, like the way that coronavirus kills you is it kills you with inflammation. And we're already a super inflamed population. So when you have this virus that then kicks on a cytokine storm or whatever, like just pumps even more inflammation into you, then it can push you over the edge to the point where now you're having deaths from all of these things ramping up together. It's like a chemical reaction when you pour the baking soda with the vinegar and the volcano, and either of them can stay dormant in the little volcano for a long time without being a problem, but as soon as they hit each other, you get this big reaction. If you take
obesity and flu
and put them in together, you get a volcano of 544,000 deaths.
Do you think that's why it hit America so much harder than every other country?
I think it's a combination of way too many factors to say that that's the reason. I would say, like, not taking early action because it was politicized, not locking down or doing any of this. Because originally they tried to scare you into like, oh my God, everybody stay home or the hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. Yeah, and I don't know if that would have been the case or not because it didn't happen. So I can't sit here and tell you like it worked or it didn't work. We didn't see that happen. The tough part, so that's good, right?
Because some people say like because we stayed inside, it didn't happen.
Yeah, people can take all these statistics or anything and
there's no way to run the other side of that experiment.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. It's like a fail.
We just shrug.
But definitely we saw just a number of factors like that, like not shutting down travel. Like what if we had been like China, shut the borders of each state, welded people that were sick into their homes. Like if we had done all that stuff and maybe even subsidized it a little bit by the government, like, oh, here's a couple $1,000, guys, don't die. Like Amazon will bring you food. But I'm saying, like, if that would have happened, would we have seen over 10,000 coronavirus deaths?
Yeah,
probably not.
But there's a lot of other countries that I can't name.
I'm not saying that's a good thing. Let me. Well, I don't think America should be welding people into their homes and shutting down state borders based on the flu.
I mean, there's definitely like one thing that we know for sure, at least in a small amount, that didn't add to that. I'd be interested, maybe you can look this up. I didn't think about it until just now. But how many people died of car accidents this year? Because 40,000 people die from car accidents every year in America on average. And I remember when we lived in LA still in March and April when it was like super duper lockdown and like the sky was clear, there was no haze, and that was all from people not driving around. Like you literally had nowhere to drive to. And the traffic was great and everything. So it's like, that's one thing. Like if you were to say like outlaw cars, that's 40,000 people right there that you could save. But it's hella inconvenient. So it's like, ooh.
A decrease of about 3.3% compared to the second quarter of 2019. And this is something when I was looking this up, it's really tough because it takes a couple years for the death numbers and all that
that's true.
to get added up and whatnot. So it's been really tough with trying to find some of that stuff. But yeah, I mean,
there's tons of things that we could easily, like the government, you could easily make an argument in the same way that you did that if the government took more action, there'd be less deaths. And I mean, you could say that with nutrition, cars, all kinds of stuff. I mean, they did that with
like
seatbelts.
Serving sizes, and things like that. You could see a decrease in the obesity epidemic that, you mixed in with the flu to kill everybody.
Yeah, because that was my thing too, is like alcohol also ranks up there as like one of the highest killing like components in our society.
Inflammation like a motherfucker. You fucking hit don't take a couple shots of whiskey today and then wake up in the morning and tell me you ain't got no inflammation.
Yeah, literally your whole brain is swollen.
Yeah. But and that kills so many people, even if it's alcohol related or induced, like car accidents because of alcohol.
Straight up alcohol poisoning.
Liver
disease. So it does all this stuff.
And we know that the numbers of alcohol consumption, maybe not alcoholism, but alcohol consumption is definitely ramped up during the lockdowns.
And what is of course they've tried before to do something about alcohol and that didn't turn out.
Take those barrels and pour it down the fucking drain.
But I mean, still, what do they do today to try and mitigate it? Like there's no mask policy for alcohol, you know what I'm saying? Like
they just try to incentivize people not to get it in certain states by taxing it extremely high or by putting attorney generals time restrictions. Warnings. They just try to soft censorship is kind of the way I would like in the prohibition they were like hard censoring alcohol and everybody was like fuck that and they were like okay chill all right, we're gonna let you have it, but every year we're gonna raise the taxes on it a little bit, and they were like all right, that's fine.
We got dry counties in North Carolina too. So
it's true, like places where you just can't buy alcohol.
Do it because
which I actually like that. Like if your community gets together and they say we don't fuck with alcohol here in this community in this county, I think you should be allowed to do that. I definitely, I don't drink alcohol now, but I probably still wouldn't live in that county just because.
I was gonna say it seems like trampling on my rights a little bit as a human being to.
That's just the part that I'm like, well, if it's federal, then I can feel that argument because you have nowhere else to go unless you move to a different country. Which, I guess you could still move to a different country, but it's like, that's even more inconvenient.
Or you could be like, fuck you feds, I'm going to drink in my motherfucking, you just have like
you could literally still do it. So it's not like they are but each step from like the municipality or like just in your house, like if your family's like, we don't drink alcohol in this family, out to your community, to your municipality, to your town, to your fucking state, to your region, to your whole nation,
to your culture.
It makes it a little bit more inconvenient to have alcohol all the way along those steps.
Yeah.
And so it just depends on like how much you want alcohol and how much inconvenience you're willing to put up with and shit like that. So
And I guess that's just kind of how America works, and probably like so why our numbers are highly more inflated, because there's so much individual choice of like, you know, like I said, I could not wear a mask, which I chose not to. Like they told me you were going to wear a mask, and I was like, yeah, but you're not going to make me, you know. So I was outside all the time, never wore a mask, like only really to enter into establishments and things because I knew that they wouldn't let me in without one, right?
Yeah,
so
like when you gotta go get your groceries and they're like, hey man, you gotta have a mask on to get your groceries. It's like, all right.
But it's like the safety belt in Iraq. It's like, I know if I put the stupid reflective fucking weight belt around my chest across ways, no one's gonna fuck with me.
Yeah.
I hate doing it. It doesn't make any sense.
But
it's not gonna block a fucking mortar attack from killing me.
anything.
It's not gonna do anything good other than be like, don't hit me with a fucking gator.
Yeah, which there are very few of them.
Yeah,
but
so
you just do it because people tell you to do it.
You don't want to get hassled.
Yeah.
You don't want to get hassled. That's the whole point. Is like, okay, you're gonna make me wear this thing, and you're gonna hassle me if I don't wear it, and all I gotta do is go clack one time. It's similar.
Social conditioning.
Yeah. Oh
true.
yeah.
I mean,
definitely.
we do that with everything, and we talked a little bit about it in the nature versus nurture episode. Go check that out.
Yeah, check that out.
And you know, in the idea of like what's socially acceptable, and it's like, as long as nobody fucks with you about it, socially acceptable.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, certain things like not wearing a mask when you're inside become not socially acceptable, even though it was the opposite back in the day. Like, I'll never forget when I still worked at the cannabis company in LA. I walked down to the gas station, and I walk into the gas station. I just forgot to put my mask on, and she was like, it was funny. She wasn't wearing a mask. So the woman behind the counter looks up at me and says from her phone, she goes, "You have to have a mask on to come in here." It's like 4:00 in the morning, mind you. And I stopped and I was just like, what kind of bizarro world am I living in right now where I have to put on a mask to enter a gas station at 4:00 in the morning in a very seedy neighborhood in LA? I was just like, this is so weird.
Yeah,
and then and then as I walked out, I was like, that bitch wasn't wearing a mask.
But it's so weird because I had this conversation the other day. We were watching a movie or something. Oh, I was watching old footage from the Modson movie I'm making and stuff, and it was like a clip of Mod going into this store or whatever, and he's walking in, and Jessica was like, and she was like, "Oh, that's right. Like, I guess this is old. Like, you used to not have to wear a mask when you go into places."
There's literally little labels on videos now that say like, this was filmed pre-COVID,
pre-COVID
and shit.
like,
So don't worry, we're not out here doing irresponsible things.
I found it very interesting that like in newer shows that are coming out within the past year, there's like that general switch from like, now we're just talking about 911 calls and nobody's wearing masks, to everybody suddenly wearing a mask, social distancing, and the 911 call is at a hand sanitizer factory. like this shit's going on in Netflix and Hulu and shit. Okay. So I'm saying like they've been integrating it into your media.
100%.
And not only is the news constantly about it, but look at your social medias. I bet you if you pull up Twitter right now and you look at the little search bar that shows you all the trending stuff, the very first thing you get is COVID.
Oh, well, there's 100%
YouTube, COVID.
Right here at the bottom, there's 100% a check your local COVID-19 resources
you're
thing
coming,
on this video. Like, it's 100% that little
there.
CDC tag of like, which is very interesting, right? How it's like, that's been the thing lately is like the CDC is the only approved resource for COVID information, right?
What happened to the WHO, you know?
No. They're not. Nope.
World Health Organization?
Yeah, I mean, they're saying things, but if you look at anything, like I said, anybody makes a post or does any type of information or anything based on COVID-19, it will immediately put that tag on there.
It doesn't
that
even
says,
have to be about it.
You need to go check the CDC.
You just have to like,
just say the name.
You just have to put COVID, like somewhere in text or mention it in like while you're speaking.
Yep.
It might not even be the subject matter of your actual content,
100%.
but because the word COVID was detected, the little CDC thing gets put on there, and it's like, this may be, you better check the real information because whatever this guy's saying might not be real information.
You better get the real source, Jack.
And that only comes from the CDC. It's just like, wow, that's strange, man. That in itself is that forms of soft censorship, you know, too, as we're talking about. But you know, along the conversation that we're talking about with the higher deaths, this is an interesting statistic I saw too. Drug deaths also rose steeply in the first half of 2020, according to preliminary CDC mortality data. that runs through June of last year, a trend that began before the coronavirus pandemic arrived. So, I mean, they're saying that was already going down, you know, because like we talked about too, there was a rise in alcohol-related deaths or alcoholism-related incidences. You know, people getting locked up in their house forever. They ain't got nothing else to do. They just start getting fucked up, you know, and then that kind of had a play on our society as well, you know, and just how people coped with being inside for so long.
Yeah, I remember a friend of mine who works in politics and stuff like that. She doesn't like draft legislature, but she's part of the crew that like disseminates it out to communities and stuff like that. Kind of like an activist, like an organizer or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to. I'm not exactly sure what.
Yeah, like a campaigner.
Yeah, she helps on campaigns and stuff like that. But I remember like when the lockdowns were happening, like they were literally like drinking all day, like during their meetings and stuff like that. And I was like, do you think that that's a good idea?
Yeah,
you guys are making some kind of important decisions, don't you think? Like, I can only imagine the kind of, you know, like you imagine like your teachers, like your kids' teachers, just have like a big bottle of wine off the screen, like off the edge of their screen. They're like, okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick, and then she gets up and she's like downing wine in the middle of the day, teaching your kids, and it's like,
keep working on those worksheet, kids.
You have no idea how to tell if that's happening or not.
That's funny.
Yeah, it was strange. You know, school's got affected really hard by that too.
Yeah.
Bringing about like coronavirus, it was really interesting.
Yeah, I'd say the two biggest things that happened that changed for most people is the masking and the kids being home all the time.
Yeah.
Like that was like the biggest things for most people if they like stop and think about it. Yeah. You know, if you had a group like family members that got sick and died, you know, maybe you'd put that up there, but that didn't really happen to that many people.
Not as many people.
But everybody had masking stuff, and a large majority of those people had kids and they were just at home all the time. They were like, holy shit, I can't believe I have these kids all the time.
And it just realized, like, I mean, dude, I have an 11-year-old, so it's just like, it was different. I just realized, like, dang, you depend on your kid going to school so much. Like, that's why they created
8 hours
that
a day is
system
extremely important.
Yeah.
Government said, we'll take your kids for 8 hours.
Literally, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
school system was just created
in exchange,
so that
we're
people
going to tell
can
them
work.
what we want them to know.
Yeah, right. It was like government-sponsored daycare so that you could go and do your job. But
whoa, socialism, buddy! You better calm that shit down.
I mean, if you go and look at it, that's literally what it was. So that's what school is, you know.
Yeah,
so,
it was based off the Prussian model. It was designed to make, I mean, in Prussia it was specifically and explicitly stated, we're creating better soldiers.
Yeah.
And here
Ours
they
was
kind
workers.
of ours was workers, factory
Yeah.
workers. Like that was the whole idea. They were like, wow, we could probably do the same thing and just make them really good at working these machines.
Yeah. Well,
You're
it's like
cracking my fucking brain open. I'm not okay with this. I'm about to just go grab the
100%.
Communist Manifesto and come down here and slap this down. Like, what are we talking about?
No, that's
I'm just joking. But
100%.
like, it's crazy to think about it like that. That it was based off of this Prussian model. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's big crazy to me.
When we stopped allowing kids to actually be workers, you know, and like we started creating all these labor laws, but then all the parents and stuff were like, okay, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do with my kids? Like, you want me to come to work, but I don't got nowhere to do with my kids. And so they were like, oh, okay, well, how about while you go to school or, you know, while you go to work, we'll teach your kid to become a worker.
We'll teach you what McDonald's wants.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they don't teach you anything of value or substance. It was literally just to get you to read, write, be able to, you know, follow
instructions.
Follow instructions and all that stuff.
Stand in line,
listen
single
to your
file.
teacher.
Yeah, listen to your teacher.
It's not
exactly.
like we're out of space.
Yeah.
You stand in file, single file, back to back. It's like,
obey your master. That's our Papa.
100. But it was so
Gotcha with that one. That's
so
good.
valuable. Honestly, I never realized it. It's just funny how, you know, all these things we took for granted until they stopped working. You know, and it's just like once school stopped working, everybody's like,
Government just sent you a hyperlink.
What the fuck I gotta do with my kids?
Hey, click on this video. Call.
Like, I don't know how to teach this little motherfucker shit. I don't know science and all that stuff. Like it was strange. But yeah, school and masking. And the reason I couldn't get down with the masking, and then here we go. I wanted to bring up the clip of what's going on now as we repeal some of these things, like Texas.
For nearly a half a year, most businesses have been open either 75% or 50%. And during that time, too many Texans
he looks like he's made
have
out of
been
clay.
sidelined from employment
Deep
opportunities. Too many small business owners have struggled to pay their bills. This must end. It is now time to open Texas 100%.
Roaring applause.
It's what the people want. Political wind shifting.
Texas.
Facts.
Everybody who wants to work should have that opportunity. Every business that wants to be open should be open.
Go ahead and applause for that.
Now, let me tell you why now is the right time to do
Pants
this. Texas is far better positioned now than when I issued my last executive order back in October. And we are in a completely different position than when I issued my first executive order last March.
The man meant
Back
2
then,
executive orders
hardly
the whole
any
year.
Texan knew what PPE was. Now we have an abundance of it. Early on, there were no COVID tests. Now we have the ability to do well over 100,000 COVID tests per day. When COVID first ravaged our communities, there were
Let me
no
hit you with the
medicines
highlights.
to treat it.
This is how I beat COVID.
But now we have antibody therapeutic drugs to treat COVID and to keep people out of hospitals. In fact, as you all know, I was with the mayor and I was with the chancellor as well as other Lubbock leaders when we formally announced the rolling out of these antibody therapeutic drugs and making them available in large-scale process to people in Lubbock as well as people across the entire state of Texas. And we also have multiple medical advancements that help Texans heal and, importantly, help keep Texans out of hospitals. And last March, most Texans had no clue about the precautions needed to avoid COVID. Now, Texans have mastered the daily habits to avoid getting COVID. But most
Mastered it.
importantly now,
It's interesting.
now in Texas and across the country, we now have vaccines to protect Texans from COVID.
Some of the numbers that he didn't mention, but he had kind of alluded to, were like when he lifted the mask mandate, like how many people were, dying from coronavirus, and during his executive order. So the one he talked about in March was the executive order to wear a mask. And at that time, we were seeing in Texas 8,706 new cases a week. When he just did that announcement, we're at 7,600 new cases.
So like
it's
1,000 less.
Yeah, about 1,900, something like that less. So 87 to 76. So it's like there's a decrease, but that's after mandating wearing a mask that whole time. So it doesn't seem to be helping much, maybe, but it is helping some if you want to go off of those numbers.
Well, that's single numbers with multivariable
it's
situations.
Yeah, exactly. And those numbers have gone up and down in the weeks between those two.
I mean, you can make an argument that maybe the people that got COVID in the beginning that are now dead are not spreading it anymore. So that's what's helping the numbers.
Dude, I think the craziest...
I mean, there's a lot of ways you could slice that pie.
Yeah, you just blew my mind.
Here's my crazy thing, though. Here's my crazy thing about that whole thing, right? Now, on this, not only did he reopen business and all that stuff 100% fine, which all made sense, he took it one step further than any other governor has taken it so far. And he said, you also don't need to wear a mask, right? So no mask policy enforced whatsoever, but then also said Texans know how to use the proper PPE and all this stuff and take the proper protocols to not get it. So I'm like, what? I mean, isn't that the proper protocols to not get it? And so you're saying that they don't need to do that anymore and it's open, but it's really confusing.
Yeah. It's the political wind shifting. I can feel it.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning when everybody was afraid, it was good for Governor Abbott to come out and do the thing.
Everybody put the fucking mask on.
Put the mask on. Stay inside. We got to be careful out here, all right? And now, I mean, people aren't fucking with that these days.
Yeah.
And especially in Texas.
Yeah, especially
and so...
Yeah. I'll tell you who definitely ain't
the
fucking
other
with
way
it.
now.
Who definitely ain't fucking with it. Those people that are actually dying from those cases, but that's such a small number. Texas deaths is not astronomical by any means. So it's those are new cases every week.
Yeah. Texas was running
very
rampant.
small number of those people are dying. So when people see those numbers, it could look scary. 8,000 new cases a week down to only 7,000 new cases a week. Like, it looks like it's still spreading like crazy.
Yeah.
It's like not a lot of people are dying in Texas.
I hear that.
That's the thing. I said this months ago, and I was like, if the amount of hospitalizations and deaths have flatlined, but the cases keep going up, then what numbers are you more worried about? Like, is the cases really that important if people aren't dying and becoming very sick?
Yeah. They had
hard to say.
39. They had 39,000 deaths from COVID reported, which
Total.
yeah, it's it says it's since from March 15th to February 6th. That's March 15th last year to February 6th this year. 52,700 excess deaths. This is like excess and what
where they're thinking like it could be comorbidities or
no, just like more deaths than was last year.
Yeah,
Okay,
normal
gotcha.
times.
Yeah, total death, excess deaths. But so they're actually scrolling through this list. They're pretty fucking high. I mean, like I would say that
there's a lot of people in Texas and a lot of obesity.
That's true.
3 out of the top 5 most obese cities, if I remember correctly,
are in Texas.
Yeah,
are in
sure.
Texas. So we're talking about with that volcano eruption, you got the most obesity, the concentrated pure extract obesity.
Plus, I'd be willing to bet a decent amount of money that most of those deaths happened in urban cities, which is where all the fat people are located. And in rural areas, not only are you not concentrated so compactly, but there's probably less obesity. And so all of those things add up, like with your higher population count, most of the deaths coming from urban areas and stuff. And that's why I think you see people like places like New York, even though they were super locked down, just the way that city's built is not conducive for social distancing. Like it's on an island, like you're on a handful of islands that are not even miles long.
Also looks mismanaged.
Yeah, there's shot up straight through the roof. If you saw their excess deaths and
they
stuff like that.
mismanaged the shit out of it. Yeah. Absolutely
Christ.
mismanaged.
Yeah, and I mean, Cuomo's getting a lot of flack for what he did. Those
especially those unwanted hugs. He's been getting a little touchy.
Let's not get into all that. We're not gonna hit a Me Too section in this COVID episode. But
hey, Rachel Maddow would. Just saying, she brought it back to COVID when they were talking about the riots.
No, I don't watch Rachel.
It was one of our episodes.
Oh,
no, it was one of our episodes. Yeah, there was even a clip about it. It was funny. It was good.
Yeah, I tend to just blank out anything she says, honestly. Nah, it's not really that bad. I don't know much about it.
But I would like to point to that though too, because we keep bringing obesity up as like this main link between COVID. It's a lot more than that. Like you're a smoker, you have respiratory issues, you live in a very compacted place. Like there's a lot of things that can skew your numbers or make you more likely to get fucked up by it than just being like obese.
Well, no, I've actually seen tons of different reports that said that being obese was one of the best indicators for whether or not you'd have severe problems or die from COVID. Like it's one of the biggest issues.
I would love to bring that up. Hopefully somewhere around here is that
the magical
source for
floating
that.
source.
Yeah,
that we
for
always
that.
bring.
But
look for it.
I mean, but that is obviously a major proponent in a lot of sicknesses and diseases and stuff like that.
It definitely doesn't help.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an exacerbating factor in a lot of deaths.
Heart
disease.
Every death.
Yeah, exactly.
In every death.
Anytime someone dies, weigh the body.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? But I just don't want to make it seem like, just because you're not fat, you're healthy, and then therefore you can't get COVID or something.
No, that's not how it goes at all. But I mean, it's definitely... Your chances are like in the same way that your chances of heart disease go down dramatically if you're not obese. The same way, like the chances of you dying from COVID go down significantly if you're not obese. That doesn't mean that you won't.
Also,
but
don't
it's
be
much
old.
unlikely.
Don't be old.
Yeah, also, if you just happen to have been born a while ago, that also increases your chances very much.
Which happens with all flus, though. Like the flu wipes out majority of old people is another reason why,
Most deaths are also linked to being old.
Right, facts.
I mean, 97% of... I think it's like anywhere from 85 to 97% of an individual's healthcare costs come in the last 2 years of their life.
Yeah.
Now that could also include people who are 25 and they get testicular cancer or some shit like that. That's not to say that only old people die, but when you look at the numbers, most people that die are old.
Yeah. And I think that, like you said, most people are trying to prolong their life. Like that's the whole point, like medicine and stuff like that. So that's why you start spending a lot when you're finally sick and dying is when you're trying to stave that off. So that makes sense. But
also they want to hit your estate, you know what I mean? Get you for as much as they can.
Ooh, damn, take it that way.
Hey, I mean, it is true. It's a profit thing. It's like, like you're really sick. Well, I'm going to charge the fuck out of you because you're about to die. Let me get all the money.
Yeah, get as much as I can.
Run your card a couple more times.
Spend all your money before you die, folks.
Yeah.
We got these experimental treatments.
Yeah, not only that, but the taxes on your estate are ridiculous.
Yeah, let me tell you, we need that money for the schools.
Yeah, when you die, we're gonna have to tax all this money that we've taxed 3 and 4 times along your entire life. We're gonna have to tax that again.
Yeah.
Interesting. So Ohio opened up too, and they're keeping the mask going.
I saw that Arizona opened up, but I didn't see if they were doing mask mandates still.
I don't know.
But I did hear that Arizona was like the latest one to open up.
Yeah. A lot of people are bringing back events and stuff. Nevada here, they're opening again 35%, I believe, capacity.
Yeah,
and so now they're bringing back shows and stuff. We looked up tickets to go see Usher, and they were $400.
I bet.
Yeah, you know,
I would not be spending money on going to a concert.
They're hitting
in
you
the
for
next
the premium right
7
now.
to 8 months.
You're paying for the empty seat next to you.
Oh yeah, facts. Facts.
You're paying for 6 feet worth of room.
Well, that's why
a
most
lot of money,
shows
buddy.
haven't, like in like Cirque du Soleil shows and stuff like that. Previously the cost to the individual consumer would have just been so high to cover the cost of the fact that you had to have 3 and 4 seats next to you that were empty because of the capacity rates. So now, people, as they increase the capacity numbers at different places, certain shows will be able to open. People will be more willing to pay that money than for other things, and so businesses are having to calculate do those calculations for each of their own events and stuff like that to find out, like, will people pay $400 for an Usher show? And you're goddamn right.
They are. Goddamn, you know. I mean, it's a premium. People have been dying to get out of their house, dying to go back to concerts. So it's, it's
not to mention that
Bitcoin
Usher make that booty go clap.
Yeah, so you're gonna pay that. You're gonna pay that premium.
You gotta pay that premium to get that booty clap.
But I think I'm cool with the lack of mask policy because it's kind of like you said too. I think make your own choices. If you want to wear, they're not saying you don't have to, you can't wear a mask, right?
Yeah.
Like you can still wear a mask if you want to, but I just think this whole time, you brought it up a little bit earlier, and that's why I really wanted to bring it back to it. You guys been wearing masks, but it's not like everybody out here is wearing an N95 fucking like
some
respirator fucking mask.
Some of the masks, according to some studies, are actually worse than not having a mask. So it's like. But I didn't hear anybody, like, there wasn't any sort of legislation that came out and said you can't wear neck gaiters anymore because they're actually worse. Like, that whole thing came out, and then everybody was like, oh, neck gaiters. And, like, the people who were worried about it were like, you shouldn't wear neck gaiters. But it's not like any politicians were like, hey, we're going to have to tell you guys not to wear those neck gaiters anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and not to mention that, like, I was even seeing corporations not have the balls to be like, hey, sir, put that mask on because people were dying. In North Carolina, before I left in September, I mean, we had been dealing with coronavirus then for about 6-7 months. Lots of deaths. It was starting to hit North Carolina. It's it's up there in those numbers we were looking at. Yeah. And it was like, yo, we're going to require people to wear masks to come into this establishment. And after about an hour, they stopped asking. Because like it was starting to get people were starting to get a little conflict there.
Yeah. Testing,
and there was either a Dollar General or something like that, a Family Dollar, where they had like a little security guard, and it was in like some part of North Carolina, and somebody was like, yo, you gotta wear that mask. Dude fucking killed the security guard.
No
So
way.
I don't know what the escalation was, but it was over a mask.
Yeah.
So they just, I don't know how they do it now. I haven't been back there in about 6 months.
Yeah.
But
And I will say that just because, and this is the part that I personally like, is the optionality. Just because they have lifted the mask mandates, Walmart's still going to make you wear a mask.
Yeah.
Target's still going to make you wear a mask. Like all of these big companies that are nationwide, they're going to keep their personal individual business-wide mask mandates going just because it'll make them look bad to other states that are...
You think they're going to do that in Texas?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Whoa, Target's... You think? That's crazy to me.
I would be willing to put every cent that I own on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not for a second think that any Walmart, any sort of corporate business that is nationwide, I would be willing to bet that they keep their mask policy going until the foreseeable future.
It'll be interesting to see how far
the cool thing about this, though, is that, and I was talking to our mom about this, they were just visiting, they live in Texas. Now, small mom and pop shops will have the opportunity to cater to people who specifically do not want to wear a mask. Before, there was no option. To stay open, you had to make people wear a mask, even if you were only kind of like slightly doing it. Like you had to at least have the signage and stuff, just in case one of those fucking inspector people came around, like asking, like, "You're making your mask policy," So it's like those places will have the option to be like, "Hey, look, when you come to Joe's fucking produce shop, you don't gotta wear a mask." And I remember when there were mask mandates still in effect, when people were like, we don't fuck with masks. You're not allowed to come in the store with a mask on.
Went to the Northwoods of Wisconsin. They didn't take it that far, but they flat out said right there on the sign, like, we're not enforcing a mask policy, so if you don't like it, go shop somewhere else.
Go shop somewhere else, yeah. And people will. And people who don't want to wear a mask will go shop somewhere else. Now that they have the option, they will take that opportunity.
Yeah. It is a good little way to you know, cater your business, especially in somewhere like Texas where there's a lot of people who are not with it, fam. You know what I'm saying? Like that. So.
And one thing that I would like to say is just like, it's interesting the way that this is all going down, because I look back at like Florida and how Florida had just like the most lax mandates and shutdowns of any state at all.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, if you looked at their number of deaths per 100,000 people in the population, they were like 26th. Ranked 26 out of 50 states
they
for
only went
hundreds
up
of deaths.
18%.
Yeah, look at that.
They only went up 18% as compared to, like,
and I
we
mean,
were just talking
Florida
about
has
New
one
York
of the
went up
highest populations of elderly
59%.
people over 50,
That's
the age
true
of 50.
too. Yeah,
so many
fuck
old
ton of
people
elder
live in
people
Florida,
live
and Florida was just skating by the whole time. Everybody was talking shit, and Florida been Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been Florida-ing.
Yeah, like, and you know, it doesn't get the same kind of play as like other you know, like you see places like New York that got just slammed, but then there's places that you would expect to get slammed that didn't get slammed. And so it's so weird. And it's the same thing. Like, you see some people who seem very healthy, young, vibrant, they eat well, got destroyed by COVID. Some of them died. And then you hear about, like, the one example I used in the last time we talked about it, but it was Michael Yo in his interview with Joe Rogan, and he talked about how he got COVID and it just wrecked him, and he had also been doing a bunch of traveling and stuff, so his immune system was probably compromised anyways. But then his 70-year-old mom got it, and she was cool in like a couple of days. She was like, yeah, I'm chilling. Yeah. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What? It's
but
hard to say.
Epigenetics, you know, like we talk about
epigenetics,
this,
baby.
Like, it's just, you never know how you're gonna respond.
Yeah,
to
Some old people hardy.
Yeah, they just be evolving on the fly like that.
In certain circumstances. But all that said and done, so now that we're starting to open up and this and that, and we've seen this whole year of it go down, do you feel, and this is obviously your own personal opinions here, right? Like, do you feel like it was an overreach? Do you feel like we overreacted, or we reacted just right?
I will say,
or we're still fucked?
I will like to point at one underreaction, and that one underreaction is economic relief when you tell people they have to quarantine in their home. Because you said you had to, the government said, they said, hey, now go back in your house.
Yeah.
Don't you fucking come out. You better put this mask on.
We're shutting down your business.
We're shutting all your businesses down. Here's $600.
Yeah.
You know, the first time it was like $1,200.
Yeah.
The second time it was like $600.
Months and months apart.
And you know,
yeah, true.
And before we segue into the next segment where we do talk about relief packages, I will say, like, even that could probably be like $1,200. So we're talking like not a lot of money to the American average person that's in, you know, like the 50% of people that work retail and truck. So it's like, you're only giving them this tiny little crumb, but you're saying, lock yourself inside of your house. Don't go see your fucking parents. Don't have fun. Don't you goddamn dance. Don't you fucking go to the bar.
But like you said,
Don't
like,
you go to that church and sing.
All that.
Don't you, you go to church in person?
About that stuff, like you said, that's all recreational activity. But the fact that they said you cannot work, right? So we're not going to give you an ability to make income to survive, to buy groceries and water and, you know, things you need,
electricity,
you know what I'm saying, all that stuff. But then it's strange, how are you going to shut down all these businesses? A lot of people lost their jobs, you know, a lot of people got laid off, and that's why I said when we started this thing, I said, you know, it didn't affect me personally, right? Like, I kept my job and I might have caught it, don't know, but it's like, you know, nobody I know died of it, so it's just my personal individual experience with it was one of great ease. But that is not the case for a lot of people. Like we're talking about, some people really lost their job, and when they lost their job, it wasn't like you could, just go get another job. Where nobody's fucking hiring. Even if they weren't firing the people they had, they definitely weren't hiring new people, you know. So it was really tricky for a lot of people, and then they didn't.
And think about this too, like some of those people lost their jobs, didn't have income for months on end, and then had a family member die that they had to pay for their funeral costs and shit like that. Like that, I mean, funeral costs already set people back, and they're working full-time employment because it just costs so goddamn much to put somebody in the ground for some reason. But now you couple that with months on end of not having any income. Like that just destroyed people.
And I saw the competitive market when I fled from Los Angeles after they shut down the NBA. I went back to North Carolina and I said, yo, I need a little part-time giggy boy. Like, let me go stack some milk crates. And my man was like, all right, I can get you in, but like there's a lot of competition. Like we're trying to get people in. Like people want in before the rush because it looks like grocery stores are going to be the only thing open. Right. That's what it looked like. So they got me in a motherfucking vice over that pay rate because they were just like, yeah, we just can't give you over $10, and I'm like, oh god, under $10, like how is that even like you're gonna? But hey, they got under $10 worth of effort. Yeah. And that's the thing about that marketplace is like, yeah, it's a free marketplace, but you can work it.
Yeah. And I think that for me personally, I actually had this very interesting thought that popped in my head when Trump tested positive for COVID. And I mean, Trump is, by all looks and appearances, not a very healthy man. I mean, he's overweight. He probably eats like a slob. I mean, I'm making assumptions here, but I mean, like when you look at him, you just don't think the pillar of health. And he's 74 years old. So when he got COVID and like he brushed it off in a few days, I thought to myself, I was like, well, because originally I thought that it was all a huge overreach. Because I was like, well, this is a coronavirus, and for the first 2 weeks during like the flatten the curve era, if you guys remember that, I was like, hey, I'm not worried about it myself. Yeah. But I don't know. So maybe we should not go to work for 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks, like you should be able to last 2 weeks without making income. Like that shouldn't be so hard. And so like, yeah, you should have at least a little bit of savings. Like
which
last
most
you for
Americans
2
don't.
Which they don't.
But you should though.
But you should.
You should. You don't, but you better.
Yeah. I mean, 2 weeks.
Maybe you should think about that in the future. And so when that all went down, I was like, I'm cool with that. 2 weeks. I mean, I don't even really go anywhere anyway, so that's not going to affect me that bad anyways. And I felt like a lot of people were whining, but I was like, hey, look, could get bad out here. Could get bad. 2 months in, I was like, okay, well, clearly this doesn't seem to be as bad as we all thought it was going to be. And then ever since then, I was just like, I feel like y'all are blowing this out of proportion. Like, it just became super politicized, and I was like, I can just see all of the incentives point to these politicians ramping up the stuff to appease the people who are worried about it. Mostly just because the people who were worried about it were the most vocal. And then when Trump got COVID, I started thinking to myself, like, we had all these new treatments and not vaccines, but we had treatments and all kinds of different stuff that we had all these different things that the doctors and the medical establishment now knew about it. They had 8 months worth of time to study it and figure it out and treat patients and stuff like that. And I just thought to myself, like, can you, like, as a thought experiment, what would have happened if Trump got it in April? You know what I mean? Like, if Trump had caught COVID in April, like that could have been serious. Like they didn't have hydroxychloroquine. I mean, they had it, but they didn't know that it did anything. They didn't have all these different treatments and stuff like that, ways to help you. And so with that thought experiment, I said, maybe these lockdowns ended up having an effect. And it just got me to kind of change my perception on it a little bit. But I still think that on principle, you can't tell people that they're not allowed to go outside. Like I just don't believe in that. And so I think that it was a severe overreach. I think that they could have done more in the way of education and advocating, like, like, hey, look, it's really important. We're not going to make you at the point of a gun, but we'd really, really appreciate it. And now, obviously, less people would have done it. But that's the price you pay for freedom.
There's also the factor of the protests. The death of George Floyd and the ensuing protests that happened, like...
That's where...
Pretty close to what you're saying. You're saying like 2-3 months in, when everybody was kind of sick of this shit, all of a sudden, people are out there on the streets building chaz.
Yeah.
And, trying to, and ripping down every statue they can across the world. So it's like that, and then going into the election, like we've seen so many different areas where it's like, does that affect COVID-19? Because it looks like it does. It looks like
like it should, based on what they told us.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody's masked up. So it's just like,
barely.
Exactly, barely. Like you have people pulling their masks down and screaming in each other's faces.
Like we talked about it in our episode with the George Floyd protests and stuff. It's just like
our first
tear
episode,
gas,
actually.
so people are sneezing, snotting everywhere. Most of them are wearing neck gaiters. Most are wearing ineffective masks to start with.
It's hard to yell through a mask.
Yeah, and you can transfer.
It's hard to have your voice heard through a mask.
It's also you can transfer bacteria when you're punching people's face with your fists.
Yeah. Or imagine like getting pushed with a riot shield. Like one guy gets pushed and he sneezes on it, and then he pushes some other guy.
And how many people you think had it over their nose? I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of them were just running around with the mask like
there was
this.
a place I went recently where they gave you the pre-warning, and they were like, "Yep, you got to wear a mask in here that's above your nose."
So they're serious.
They're very
My parents
serious.
they just flew in from Texas and stuff, and they were saying like the stewardesses on the plane were being like straight up hostile about it and stuff. They're like, "You better have your goddamn mask on. It better be over your nose, sir." Over your nose, sir.
Over your nose, sir.
No, look, this. You're cutting it close. I need it all the way up here to the underneath.
Don't play with me, sir.
They were like, "Yo, we didn't even finish fully planing before there." And I had told them, I was like, "Well, come on now. I mean, for a year now, they've had motherfuckers just like, fuck you, I ain't wearing no goddamn mask." You know, so it's
You can't make me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
so
actually, we can. We got these air marshals
they
right here, and they're gonna get you off this plane.
But I thought that's where it really went south for me. You know, and not to shit on anybody's right to protest or anything, or just, you know, whatever. But if we're all gonna, in the peak of it, in the peak of what we thought was gonna be this huge crisis or whatever, like for everybody to gather in groups of hundreds of thousands, I thought that was just very counterproductive. And then that's what really started making me really question like the efficacy of this thing, or like how serious was this actually, you know, like but I'll tell you, seeing the numbers and seeing that, you know, there's this many excess deaths, and like, so this many more people died than should have or would have, right? And then, you know, I see why people thought at first this could be really bad. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about something that came out of nowhere and then shot up the list as like one of the most dangerous things out here.
They also thought it was really easy to transmit.
And then,
it turned out to be a little bit harder than they thought.
Right? And so, you know, it did end up being a lot less, but I think that's where it's been for me, was just you know, really quick to react, but really slow to change course, right? And that's what I don't like. It's like a immense fear response, and then just like you all said, well, hey, we got something here, you know, like now that we kind of got everybody in a good panic and everybody's locked up, like maybe we can transfer a couple billions of dollars around here, you know, maybe we can get some election things, trillions.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get some election things,
get some relief packages that give the companies a little taste.
Maybe we could get a little bit of mail-in voting nationwide going, you know. Maybe we could just hold them inside for a little bit longer. There's an election coming up.
Maybe there's some things we can do with this.
Now, YouTube, I want to make this clear. YouTube, we are not saying anything weird about the election.
We didn't say the F word.
Did not say the F word. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, whatever.
Well, if you make statements, it's hard to do this. It's hard to explain this. This is gonna be off the record. So yeah, back to the record.
Here's my conspiracy on the whole situation: is I think that it was a government ploy to make certain political moves happen, you know,
maybe to guarantee victory in an election, and
just to make things go a certain way. There's a quote that I always bring up in this, and we talk about, I don't know who it is or what it's for, but the politician's Bible says, let no good crisis go to waste.
Facts.
You know, and I think that's just where it comes down to, like, crisis, let's go ahead and make sure we get this $15 minimum wage going. You know what I mean? Like, let's get whatever it is that we want to get going while we got everybody kind of thinking irrationally. That's really what it comes down to.
I've been hearing whispers. There's whispers in the wind of climate lockdowns in the future. Like every couple of years, we might just have like a 2-month lockdown
just to keep the air pollution down.
Just to let the CO2 breathe a little bit. You know, it's like because they see now. Hey, if we give them a good enough reason, they'll stay inside.
As long as they go ahead and hit me with this stimulus package when they do it.
Yeah, hit me with that motherfucking
they hitting you with that stimulus package right now, but when that inflation slaps you in the face in 10 years, you could be like, fuck, what happened? And then you'll forget, oh, that's right, the stimulus package.
Yeah, you think the stimulus package, explain, what do you mean by that? Like,
well, the money that they're using to do these relief packages are being printed. Like, you remember how I said like over 20% of all US dollars in existence ever were printed last year?
Yeah.
That's going to come back. Like you can't just put 20% more money into the economy without the value of your money decreasing exponentially.
I wish we would have taken it away from bombs. That would have been.
Yeah, I wish we would have diverted it. Yeah, but instead they were like, we're just gonna make some more. Yeah. It's fine. It's gonna be fine.
Sprinkle 20% more on it.
Yeah, we're just gonna put a little bit 20% more in there. It's gonna be fine.
Tweet.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
20 sack.
I'm telling you, your groceries, your milk, your eggs, your gas, all that shit's gonna be way more expensive in 5 years.
The bill comes due.
The bill comes due. It always.
That's one of my favorite quotes
dude.
ever, dude. He says,
That's funny.
the bill comes due always.
You don't get free money.
I feel like because that go ahead and shift it into the economic stimulus and relief
Let's
package.
talk
that they
about the
just
COVID
passed.
relief
Let's talk about
that
some-
was
yeah.
one of the things that was like talking about, when everybody was like talking to, I believe, Mitch McConnell or somebody, but they were like, 70% of Americans are for this bill passing, and he's like, yeah, I know everybody wants to get a check, He was like,
but that's the thing, is that Mitch McConnell was
He's like, I'm sure everybody wants
recognizing,
to get a
based
check.
off of the things that people have heard about it, I'm sure they do want this
'Cause you
check.
know what I'm saying? Like-
But if they knew what I knew, they wouldn't want
That's
it.
what he was saying, pretty much. That's what
I
he was
mean,
saying. He was like, they don't know what's going into it. But
We
I'm
held
pretty
a
sure-
candidate up whose entire platform was universal basic income.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Yang
yeah.
Gang was very vocal. A lot of people started shifting their
Yeah.
viewpoint on that the same way they shifted their view on healthcare when Bernie came to his notoriety in 2016. So we saw in 2020 this Yang Gang shit. So to me, it's like that idea is not pie in the sky anymore. Like when you say that there could be some sort of universal basic income in America, I don't immediately think the fucking economy's gonna crash. Like it gives me a little bit of hope that maybe within our system there is some way to help people put money back into this free market.
Yeah.
It's not that it's impossible. It just depends on how you do it.
Exactly.
Like if you just print all the money to give to people, it's going to have some very negative consequences that the person who's in the politician who enacts that bill won't be in office by the time the repercussions come around. So, and everybody will forget how it happened anyways. Like it's so spread out that you have a hard time linking the inflation to the time when they increase the amount of money in the economy by 20%.
This is my source to say it is absolutely impossible to create a universal basic income. How can you do that? Like, where, like you said, where does this money come from? We're $27 trillion in debt right now.
to China.
Well, to the banks, but nonetheless, like my point is, when we do say that, because we are a wealthy country, as people say or whatever, like there's a lot of money.
We're
in
so wealthy because
circulation.
of all of our debt. Look how much
So
debt
I
that
just
is.
We've been
don't-
charging our charge card for fucking 30
we're wealthy
years.
as
So
shit.
everybody's like, yo, we should all just get a little piece of the pie, and it's like,
There is no pie.
There is no
You guys
pie.
have been
We're-
scraping metal off
We
the pie
are-
pan for the last 30
we
years.
are
There's been no pie for a long
broke.
time.
We're broke. I don't know what you're talking about, Will. Like, just because, it's like that neighbor down the street who's got a jet ski, a nice house, and all these things, and this and that. And you're like, man, that dude's really got it. He's broke. It's all bought on credit. And it's like the idea that, you can't take out a credit card to give money to your homie. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't work necessarily. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm no economist, so I have no clue. But it is interesting. And that's why when we talk about that, like, just, $1.9 trillion, everybody. It's like, man,
One
that's
thing
tough.
to remember is that it is not an impossibility for the same thing to happen to our currency that happened to Venezuela's currency.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not using that to like shit on socialism or anything, but just for whatever reason, monetary systems and the value that's held within them can be debased. And if you debase it long enough, you literally need a wheelbarrow of it to buy a piece of bread.
That's a very finicky
And
process.
that can happen to the US dollar. Now, the banking system is very smart, and they've been propping the US dollar up for a very long time. And it's really, as far as I'm concerned, in my own personal opinion, it's only a matter of time before the shit crashes.
Yeah.
And I mean, this fucking relief, these relief packages are only going to exacerbate the timeline and make it a little bit shorter. So it's like, I don't see it happen. I don't see any sort of future where the US dollar does not have a severe plummeting.
Yeah. But it's tough because we put ourselves in a rock and a hard place, because I do agree with you 100% too. You can't lock everybody else in the
And not
house
give them
and
anything.
then not, you know what I mean? Like, we do have to survive out here. So it's like, you can't say you're not allowed to work or make your own money, but then not give people something to be able to
Papa
make
government's
money.
got to give me an allowance.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do that,
If you're gonna do it to
now,
me.
again, me personally, if you're like, hey, Rod, which do you choose? I say let everybody work. We'll take our chances with this virus shit. Mask up, do what you gotta do, boys, but get your bread out here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As compared to being like, stop that and we'll pay you. But you got to do one or the other. So we locked down. We kept everybody in their house. We saw unemployment rates shoot up through the roof, right? And so
Suicide rates rising.
right?
Yeah.
And so, people are getting paid, but through that, and then also, you know, some relief in like giving us a couple of dollars here and there. But I think it's been chump change compared to.
It has been.
It's been very minuscule, like compared to that.
I mean, especially.
I was going to say, you make a great point, though, that even though there was mass unemployment insurance and people filing for unemployment and getting money was on a huge rise. So it's like there was some government benefit.
There was a little assistance there.
Yeah, there was some assistance there. Something that I don't really think about.
When you look at the distribution of the, like when you say, like you can imagine, I don't know what the exact number is for the amount of people that were getting the federal extension or the increase of the unemployment insurance on top of their state unemployment insurance, which was also increased in most states and stuff like that. So like they gave out a lot of money, but then when you look at, and a lot of that money came from the first COVID relief bill. But when you look at that amount of money, the amount of money that they directly paid to American people as compared to the kind of shit that they gave away to giant corporations and to foreign governments and stuff like that, it's like, well, if you had all of that, why did we only get what we got?
It's true.
Like, you know,
right.
if you're going to give $10 million to so-and-so fuckface government for their whatever fucking, what was it, like their humanities and gender studies?
While we're trillions in debt.
Yeah, while we're trillions in debt. Like, if you were going to give them $10 million, don't you think that maybe we could have used that? Yeah. Like, you think that maybe whatever countries around the world should maybe pay their own people?
Great analogy. I imagine someone coming out of a store, right, who's just used their credit because they're $27 trillion in debt to buy all these fucking cruise missiles, F-35, all that shit. They're coming out of the store. They got the bags on their arm and they're with their person or whatever. They're coming out, and then they see a homeless person. The homeless person's like, "Can I have $10 million so I could do a study on gender?" And we're like, "Of course! I've got so much to spare. Don't you see all these F-35 Raptors? Here you go, little country. Take $10 million.
Take this. And then they get home and they realize. And what you don't notice the whole time though is that person's next door neighbor's starving.
Yeah, exactly.
The guy next door, the other American guy, just dying from starvation.
Yeah, that's true. So it's a sketch, but here we are, and this is our third package that we've gotten. Big old Joe Biden's first political victory, as everybody's been touting it. And one of the cool headlines that I saw with this whole thing, and not to make it too I'm make it as political as I want, I guess, but they were pointing out how Biden said he was going to be a bipartisan candidate, right? Like he's going to Trump
unity
divided us completely. I'm going to bring the two parties back together as
Build
one,
back better.
and we're gonna come together and be one and work. This bill did not show that is going to be the case whatsoever.
Surprisingly enough, the first coronavirus bill under Trump was a bipartisan bill.
Yeah.
That was bipartisanly voted on. Like everybody was for it. Now you could say that the circumstances were a little bit different, which they were.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, if we're just looking at it based on how bipartisan it was, and we're comparing the two, Trump's bill was way more bipartisan than this new one.
And I think because again, the reaction was different. Like, we didn't know anything about COVID. It was a big deal. It was all locked down. Everybody's like, "Yo, we got to help," and then that was it. There was no like, we shouldn't help. Like I was the only motherfucker back then being like, nah, this is bullshit. Yeah, this is bullshit. But everybody else was like, it's a serious thing. And so I think that at that time, had you gone against something like that, you'd have been a clown.
Oh, exactly. The political winds would have just blown you right off the map.
I think what people are seeing, and this is kind of how I feel about it too, is that, again, it's some political grandstanding going on here where Biden wants to start off with a little bit of like, get the people on his side, give you something, to get it going. And he's like, I want to give the people some money. And then everybody's like, well, we're kind of coming back to work now, and like there's vaccines.
Yeah,
like,
you could just let people go back to work.
Yeah, like we're just kind of getting back to it. Like I don't think we need it. He's like, no.
We control the House and the Senate.
Trust me, I want this COVID relief bill.
I want to go ahead and push this real quick so I could come out roaring, And so I just don't think that a lot of people are with that another stimulus. Now, like I said, I get our viewers here, we included, trust me, we want that check. Like, I'm about that business. I'm like, yo, go ahead and give it to me. I'm only here for 70 more years, so fuck it.
Yeah, hit me, dealer.
Yeah, by the time this inflation hit, is of no concern to me. So my
buy my bug out bag, get my motherfucking, get my camping,
get my garden started, baby.
So you know what I'm saying? My personal selfish interest, I want that check. But as a politician or somebody who plays the game, I'm looking and I'm just like, nah, dog, you just trying to come out swinging. Like, fuck that.
Like Max said,
Yeah, exactly. The
political winds is strong right now, baby. And not only that, but like, again, like I could be down for that. Like if you were like, oh wait, we really just want to help the American people and stuff. Like I could totally get down with that if that's what you were actually doing.
Yeah.
But when you look at what's actually in this bill, like I argue, I don't argue. I saw Dan Crenshaw, he's a congressman from Texas, and he was saying that it's kind of laughable to consider this to call it a COVID relief package. By his calculations, now he's a Republican, so he's biased, but by his calculations, only 9% of that bill will go specifically towards COVID relief stuff. Vaccinations, vaccination distribution, stimulus relief payments and stuff like that.
What's
only 9%.
What's the rest of it going to?
By his standards, or by what he's saying, it's going 91% is going to Democratic pet projects.
I don't know. This is per this USA Today article, which I've been pulling a lot of my information from. But this is some of the bullet points that they pointed out that were in the bill. It extends the 300 weekly federal boost to unemployment. So you know how like a lot of people have been on unemployment, you get extra unemployment from the Fed. $350 billion to state and local governments whose revenue has declined.
Now, one thing I will point out that I thought was a great point that Dan Crenshaw mentioned when he was talking about this bill was that it doesn't require any sort of reopening plans, and it favors states that had huge lockdowns because their economies were the ones that were most impacted, which just so happened to be the blue states.
Interesting.
Yeah, they also cut out the whole $15 an hour minimum wage part of it, which said that by 2025, the federal minimum wage would have to go up to $15.
Yeah.
It was like a total, like, kind of the progressive part of the Democrats were like, but just this crumb, please. And they were like, no, this is Joe Biden's bill. Yeah. It must be clean.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely
no,
not.
Biden's actually one who's been pushing that too, because that's on his agenda.
But I think that the fact that the Democrats voted against it, you know what I'm saying, and didn't even let it appear in the Senate bill, like I think all that kind of points towards the older part of the Democratic Party,
the elitist section of the Democratic Party,
kind of saying like, listen here, progressives, not yet.
It's not your time yet.
Wall Street still controls some of the older ones.
It's the first year, you know. Give them like 2 more years, we might talk about it.
Yeah, that part of the bill was the big thing that I think was like a padding. You know, I haven't seen, everything else seems to be pretty correlated with assistance and stuff, vaccine development. This was an interesting one. Expands the child tax credit up to $3,600 per child. Now I'm like,
because they're making your kid go to school at home.
Oh, I see. So you get a little extra money.
From your taxes.
Yeah, a little more money for the alcohol.
The thing that you're saying though is like, you're like, oh, you know, the rest of this stuff looks like it's pretty good. Do the math. That's not $1.9 trillion.
Oh, okay. I feel
that's not all the money. Those are all the things that are going towards COVID relief.
Yeah.
But that's not all the money.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much $300 a week federal boost adds up to.
There's only a certain amount of money in the bill that goes to that, though. Once that money's out, that's why the $300 a week ended last time, because they only put so much money of the relief bill towards that. Well, and then when it was used up within 4 months, I remember I was on unemployment and I was getting that. I got it for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then it was over. Now I got into it a little bit late, so maybe it lasted like 5 months. But once the money that's allocated towards that part,
they don't start.
It's gonna go away.
But then there's also the stimulus check. So everybody who's earning up to $75,000 gets $1,400. So
he promised us $2,000.
That's a big part of it.
You gotta make some sort of compromise.
I'm just saying. It's just like when Obama was like, "You can choose your doctor." It's like, don't lie. You just don't have to lie.
Well, that's the problem, is that they can say those things and then. They can promise you those things and get your support, and then even though they know that they won't get it, and it's a negotiation tactic.
Yeah.
But
start high, work your way down.
But the problem is, and I think the problem that you're having with it is that they know that they're not going to get $2,000. So don't promise me $2,000. Just say that we're going to go in there and ask for $2,000, and then, you know, hopefully we'll get somewhere near that. But they don't do that. They just promise you things that they can't really provide.
Yeah, just say we're going to get you some help. You know, we're going to try to give me a range.
It's a tactic. You know, it's a tactic. You got to start high and then you get work down. You know?
Well, also you can make the argument that the more that they promise, the more support that they could get, and the harder it would be for the people who would vote against that to do that. So I mean, it's a negotiation tactic. Yeah, right. It doesn't always plan out the way you want it to, but he did promise $1,400.
So anyways, most of it seems, but the $15 federal thing was like a definitely skip. Now again, this is the only article I'm citing, so I would definitely go and look around more on this stuff about the relief package specifically. But one of the things that the article pointed out too was that that this was that is a political agenda of Biden and the Democrats, or the progressive versions of the Democrats, whatever, that they really want to see that come to fruition in this presidency. And so they thought that this would be their best and closest shot to making that happen, because right now, like you said, it's hard to. It wasn't hard, obviously they did it, but they thought it would be more difficult for people to vote against the Stimulus Relief Act and all this stuff like that, and so this was their way to like slip it in. In the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, where do you see this conversation coming up again?
Exactly.
The economy's going to rebound.
This was the best opportunity that
shot they had to pull that off, because 2 years from now you can't just propose an idea of like,
we should have $15.
Hey, we got to think about $15. But
That's
shut
why
up. No, we're not fucking doing that.
That's why the only person that's ever brought a bill to the House floor that was specifically for that was Bernie Sanders. Nobody else has ever tried to bring a bill that was like, we're just going to raise the federal minimum wage. Like, nobody's going to vote for that. You have to slip that into something else that your constituents would be mad at you for voting based on the headline of what the act is called.
I would say... Sorry. I was just going to make a point that with the trend of younger people in the House and the Senate, and these elections mattering more to young people, and the vote being activated, especially on the progressive left side after the protests, I could see a world where the Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's become the AOC's and the Rashida Tlaib's, or whatever you want to say, or the
those old
Ro
motherfuckers are going to
Khannas.
die at some point.
Well, that too. But I also think that like the progressive movement within the Democratic Party is not going to end like the Tea Party and the Republican Party.
No, it's got way more staying power.
Yeah, it has way more staying power.
Because the ideas sound way better to young people. So
it's just not there yet.
It's with the culture.
Yeah, it's with the culture.
It's with the culture.
Yeah.
So as you see that culture shift to where you're either on that progressive left or you're on the Trump train, now that Trump train got derailed, I can see a world where this...
Well, I think
it was only 10 Democrats that voted against it. So
the important...
But that was
caveat that he said to that was that in this administration, even in the like maybe depending on the kinds of circumstances that play out over the next 4 to 8 years, you could see it in a second Biden administration, like a second Biden administration, maybe, because that'd be 8 years. But I'd say that you're more looking at like 10 to 15 years before that amount of power is behind that section of the Democratic Party.
But I don't... Okay, so the Senate voted 50-49, right? So every Republican voted against it, every Democrat voted for it, and that's how they won. But in the House, right, it got shot down. That part of the bill got shot down by 10 Democratic votes. So, I mean, you said it's close, right? Those 10 Democratic votes go the other way. It goes into that. But then how do you think that shifts the Senate vote, too? So I don't know how the Senate is necessarily considering things like that as well. So
also, I learned about this parliament thing, or the parliamentary thing, like a rules committee for the first time.
Where they can just be like, you can't do that.
They can be like, you can't put that in this bill.
One thing I would like to point out, though, there's still over $1 trillion in unspent COVID relief stuff from the last package. $280 billion in Paycheck Protection Program, $239 billion for health spending, just health spending. $172 billion for economic injury disaster loans. The uninsurance expansion, there's still $172 billion left from the last one. So why exactly did we need 1.9 trillion more?
They're planning on the COVID-21 mutated strain to hit us and knock us into a motherfucking Stone Age, baby. They're like, we got a couple billion hanging out in the background.
There's still $52 billion for stimulus checks that weren't spent last time.
Damn, that's a lot of stimmies.
It's a lot of stimmies. Did you guys overcalculate those
52 billion's really not that much,
Well, when you're talking about in the context... No, you're right. I'm just saying that when you're talking about adding 1.9 trillion, another 1.9 trillion relief bill, on top of the fact that we still have $1 trillion from the last relief bill spent, it's like, well, shouldn't we probably spend that first trillion first?
Yeah.
Like, where's that at? How come... Where's it at? Where's it at, Joe Biden?
Yeah, where's that $1 trillion, Joe Biden?
Where's that $1 trillion?
I just want to like put him in the toilet.
Over here,
where's the money, Joe Biden?
I want some dessert. And they're like, finish your green beans. You're not getting no dessert till you finish your goddamn green beans. But I mean, I guess this is why that, again, like I told you, I'm not necessarily sure that this whole thing was aimed at actual help. I think this was more like Biden looking for a win. That's what I think we all agree on that.
Yeah,
is like he wants to come out, just kind of like, how Trump wanted to come out and be like, wall, right now, wall, and everybody's like, no, chill out.
He tried a bunch of different bits. He was like, anti-Muslims.
Yeah,
and they were like, well, we're not really fake. He was like, what about the immigrants?
Yeah, so every president comes out and tries to start pushing their little agenda, like this is what I'm gonna be about and whatever. And so, I'm gonna get you guys money in your pocket. I'm the friendly president, Joe Biden. But
if I ever get the chance to meet former President Barack Obama, I just want to shake his hand, tell him thank you for breaking that glass ceiling, and then be like, so what happened with that secret prison? You said for 8 years that you were gonna get rid of that, but you just never did it.
Yeah,
you just never. That was
What's
a big
up with
thing.
the drones?
Yeah,
I would ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, get us out of Afghanistan.
I would want to play, a little one-on-one, shoot some hoops with him. I want to just see him drain a three and be like, "That's what I do."
He beast you too.
That's probably what he'd answer my question with too. That's what I do.
Well, I've got no post game, so anybody could beast me. I mean, if I'm in a 5-on-5 though, I'll guard that 3-point.
We need Uncle Drew.
But so it's interesting. I don't know, but
I want to make a quick point. Hold on.
Taking the money for sure.
Obamabux, we got those. A lot of people did. Whether it was a tax credit, you remember the Obama the mortgage crisis crash, and then the tax benefit package. So we got Obamabux. We all got Trumpbux because of coronavirus the first time and the second time. I think that 600 was also because of Trump. Now we're about to get Bidenbux.
Yeah, 100%.
So shout out to the presidents for dropping the bucks.
Yeah, too bad Jimmy Carter didn't have a president set like that. He probably could have got a second term off that motherfucker.
Yeah, for real.
That's one of the things they brought up. They said to fend off naysayers about the bill's hefty price tag, Biden regularly argued the biggest risk was not going too big, but rather making the bill too small to address the scope of the pandemic. And then he said it was a lesson learned during his former President Barack Obama's term when Biden was vice president. Biden said has said he regrets that Obama-Biden administration did not put forward a larger stimulus.
In response to the Great Recession, I remember the tax credits being part of it.
Well,
so I mean, I guess that's what they're trying to build up a little surplus. Maybe they still feel like the other one's gonna get spent, and they're trying to be ahead of the curve, and they want to we're gonna need more. It's kind of like they did with beds. They were like, there's beds now, but we're gonna need more beds. Like, get more of these beds.
Put them in the parking lot. Yeah. Bring me. I want you to take a naval U.S. carrier, two of them, send them to the coastlines. We need more beds.
And then they get there and they're like, oh, we didn't really need.
We didn't actually. And the funny thing is that nobody asked for those beds either.
Nobody asked for this 199.
Just too random. What the? And then the ventilator thing too, where they just had so much excess of that.
Yeah.
Like they really did jump the gun on a lot.
The perceptions are so like you said, like we kind of talked, we made a joke when we were watching that Greg Abbott video, and I was like, man, he looks like he's made out of clay, and you kind of said like deep fake. Yeah. And I was like, man, that shit's coming too. It's gonna be hard. Like the perceptions of what we think is going on is so far different than what. I mean, I can't even say it's far different from what actually is going on because I don't know what is actually going on. Like, there's a huge problem with not being able to know what the fuck's going on because, like, there's so much contradictory information. Like we talked about with the mask. Like, are the masks helping or are they hurting? Well, it depends on the mask type, and it depends on what.
Don't sneeze in the neck gaiter.
It depends on whether or not you are wearing it above your nose, and all these things. And
take it off when you go to the bathroom.
Maybe it's because it's too complicated, but I know that there's like there was a video that I think I told you guys about that I saw. It was like a woman. She pulls up to the drive-thru and she didn't have a mask on. And the guy was like, "Oh, do you have a mask?" And she was like, "No, I don't have one." And he was like, "Okay, well, I can hand you one." And she was like, "Well, if you can hand me a mask, then why can't you just hand me my food and then I can just leave?" And he was like, "No, you have to be wearing a mask." She was like, "Well, how does that make sense? If you can hand me a mask, then you can just hand me my food and I can leave." And he just wouldn't give it to her. And it's like, it's become this like beep boop, put on the mask thing, beep boop, we need stimulus stuff. Like, I'd like to, can we pull up the PragerU video where Will Witt's talking to people? He's just asking them what their perceptions about coronavirus is. I don't remember exactly when this video came out, so the numbers are probably a little bit different than they are right now. But
September 2020.
September of 2020. So, kind of like midway, I guess if you want to say. Like midway through the thing, he went out to the streets of Hollywood and was like asking people, what do you think the numbers are? What do you think is going on with all this stuff? And like, people were just like, some people thought it was like, wow, it's like nothing. Some people thought it was like a ton. Like, it's crazy.
What's up, guys? This is Will Witt with PragerU, back on the streets on Hollywood Boulevard today, talking to people about coronavirus deaths and what they actually know about it. Let's do it. There are 350 million people in America. Right. What percentage would you say of those people have died of COVID-19?
14 to 21%.
14 to 21?
I was gonna say 15.
Specific numbers.
1%.
Yeah. 1%, yeah.
Would it shock you if I told you it was 0.056%?
Really? Wow.
These are from the CDC. Does that shock you at all?
I mean, that number is a lot smaller than I thought.
Do you know how many children in California have died from COVID? You have to guess?
Probably a couple thousands.
Maybe a couple hundred. I don't think that many.
How many people do you think under the age of 25 have died from COVID in America? Total number of people.
40,000? 10,000.
10,000? Is 360 people under the age of 25 have died from coronavirus. 2 children in all of California.
Damn, that's...
Yeah.
I mean, that...
You notice that guy's beanie? I just noticed that guy's beanie.
Is the percentage of people
Very
who
interesting.
died
It had
from
like
COVID that are
the back
above
cut out.
55 years old?
30%.
He's got the back
I
cut.
would say between 20%, 25%.
92% of all COVID deaths are over the age of 55.
Oh, damn. See what I'm saying, though? Elderly people.
Where are you nurse at?
In Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a lot of COVID patients come in there?
Somewhat. Our numbers are spiking back up, but the ICU beds aren't full, so we're happy, and we're not seeing as many deaths. So,
Were they ever full?
No, they were never full.
Is that surprising?
I wasn't surprised. No, I feel like it can be over exaggerated a little bit.
Only 6% of COVID deaths were actually caused by COVID just alone, that all the other 94% of people had pre-existing conditions before?
Yeah, I didn't know that, but I did read some article that hospitals have an incentive to call it.
I did read this article somewhere about
from, like, the states.
But I mean, you kind of get my point from the like.
Yes, they do.
Like what? How do you just don't know what's going on? Like
those
even the
people
CDC
don't look like
numbers
experts at all.
Well, no, I mean they're not experts, but I mean neither are we. So that's what I'm saying is like if even if you're trusting the experts, the CDC and the WHO have all said so many different contradictory things. It's like how do you know what's actually happening out here with COVID, with the relief bill, with any of this stuff? Like I just feel like we're not getting a solid. This is what's going on.
Well, I don't think they know. You know what I mean? It's like anything. Like that's the thing that I've been. And we can segue this into the vaccine talk a little bit, I guess, but that's what it's tricky about. I'm just saying, like, when have we ever been able to gather accurate data in a matter of 8 months? You know what I mean? Like, you don't even know the long-term effects of anything. Maybe COVID kills you 20 years later. Maybe you get it and then it stays dormant in your system and then jumps back out on you in 15 years and then murks like everybody.
Shingles.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to know. And so I think that they are trying their best to put out data that they get along the way. And that's why I think we did see a overreaction as I would categorize it, because you don't know.
I think that seeing Fauci like everywhere for the past year has been like a little bizarro world.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just kind of this one guy who's like the coronavirus guy.
Very true.
I would also say that like I really like hearing shit in layman's terms. I like seeing shit when it's on my media, but it's like trying to speak to me and not just play along to like pandemic today, more death, things like that. Like I have this clip I want to bring up from Bill Maher's show on HBO. He puts a lot of clips up on YouTube of like parts of his interviews and things like that. And he has a great one with one of the Weinstein brothers and a co-author he had. And they talk about vaccinations. They talk a little bit about that. And they also talk about mutations. And I think it would be a good way to segue. That is the moral there, Bill Maher.
I've always liked Bill Maher. I think. Not a fan. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with a lot of the things that his opinions and stuff like that, but I think that he's one of the rare people in at his stature of influence who is willing to have conversations with people who he doesn't agree with, is willing to look at things like Bill Maher is not a Trump fan. But for him to be able to sit down with Bret Weinstein and this woman, Heather Haying, and have this conversation about the lab hypothesis and stuff like that, like, there's not very many anti-Trumpers that would sit down with anybody. Like, they wouldn't entertain the idea of a lab hypothesis at all, and they'd just write you off as being a xenophobe or racist or whatever. So, I mean, I at least give him credit where it's due. For me.
He's definitely willing to have the tough conversations, which I do appreciate. It's one of the reasons why I don't consume a ton of pundit content, but when I do, like, I try to pick and choose, and the people I can easily separate the bias from. I know he hates Trump, so when he says we got to give credit where credit's due because this being politicized was bad and we should have studied this hypothesis from the beginning, like you said, like that to me is the kind of reason why I would check out his content, because it's like, at least good for you for kind of standing up to the mainstream not tide, but you know what I'm saying, like the direction of the and he was like, nah,
as an
I don't think so.
anecdote, like I peruse Tinder sometimes, and I've never once seen a woman's profile that said, liberals need not apply or don't fuck with those Biden fans or whatever. But I mean, it's like every third or fourth profile that says no conservatives, like no Trump fans and stuff. Like there's such a high amount of people on both sides that just aren't even willing to, like, people don't even, like, they're like, no, I would never be friends with a Republican. And it's like, well, I mean, is it like they just don't agree with you on certain topics, like political topics? Like, you're really not gonna, like, you're cutting yourself off from that whole swath of the population. Like, you're not even gonna talk to them.
I don't like your opinions.
Think it's Trump has become a Confederate flag. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great fucking way to put it.
Let me chew on that.
Yeah. That's what it really comes down to, is why people
makes you look real bad.
Say, they don't want to fuck with it, because there is a association that goes along with that. Like, it's not just about I have conservative views. It's like you're a racist, or you're a dummy, or you're all these other things. Yeah. Like, so I think that's
they
why
just associate those things, and that's the problem with not having the conversations, is that if you aren't willing to have the conversations with people and you just write them off as those things, then you don't give them a chance to not be those things. And so if you just, like, I can understand why race is becoming such a huge problem if half the country thinks the other half the country is full-blown racists and Nazis and shit. Like, I could understand why they would think that race is really important, because if you think half of your countrymen are racists, that's a big problem. Yeah. Whereas for someone like me, like, and I happen to have conservative values and stuff like that, at least a majority of my opinions tend to lean more towards the right, but I don't think that they're all socialist socialist murderers or anything. Like, I'm willing to have a conversation with anybody.
They're not all Antifa running around.
Burning fucking cities to the ground. Like, it's a very small amount of people that do that.
Yeah, on both sides. So it's interesting. I mean, I always thought it was common knowledge that came out of a lab. I didn't really know that was actually being, like,
it was a theory that was being suppressed.
They definitely were not big on.
I wonder why.
Well, you can't say anything bad about China.
Yeah,
this is true.
We're business partners.
Right.
This is true. God, I can't wait for y'all to watch that Ray Dalio podcast. So interesting.
So yeah, I mean, it's tough because, and I mean, especially the same thing that happened. It's kind of interesting to hear some people say, like, oh, well, we should have taken more stringent actions with the border closures. But I remember when Trump closed the border to China and he was like, we're not letting people from China in here. They were like, that's racist. And it's like, what? Like, it started, whatever you want to say, whether it came from a fucking bat in a wet market or it came from a lab, we know that it started in a place called Wuhan, and that's in China. Yeah. So it just makes sense that if you don't want a lot of it coming over here, to not let people from China come over here. That's just logical.
People had a bad taste in their mouth with Trump and travel restrictions because of the I don't want to let Muslims from these countries in until we figure it out.
Until we figure this thing out.
Yeah. But it's very interesting because the Chinese numbers compared to the American numbers in this whole thing is like...
Ooh, China numbers. Numbers. Playing that fucking Husker Du shell game with us right now is what
it's hard to say, because I think I kind of brought this point up when we first mentioned it in our meeting, but I was like, if what we're hearing about China, what they did was true, and they were welding people into their homes, and I mean, it is an authoritarian state, so it's like the government does whatever it wants, and there is no, like, personal freedoms as soon as the government decides that they're, they kind of give, they're like, here's a little bit, but it's not like you give a man an inch and he takes a mile. Like, they're literally just like, here's a little fake piece of rope that's not really tied to the real rope. You can kind of have that and play with that for a little piece of string. But as soon as they're ready, they're going to tie you up to the noose and hang you with it. So it's like...
They're 86th on the list.
Yeah, so like if you believe that they were doing...
in the world.
Well, I think Russia... No, yeah, it's They have the largest population. So like if you believe that they were doing those types of actions to contain it, I could see how their numbers being less than most countries who have freedom, I could see how that could be true, but I still don't believe them.
Can you scroll back down? I want to see the total pop. It's on the far right there.
Oh.
So if you go down to China, it's 86th, right?
Yeah, you passed it.
No, it's 80 something.
Oh, there it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's, what's that?
1.5 billion.
Yeah. Which is, India is the only one close to that, I think, right?
Probably. Yeah. India.
Yeah, 1.4 bill. India being
1.3.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean,
astronomical.
That's fascinating. But like you said, one's a communist country, the other one's a democratic country. So I mean, it's
not only that, but those have, man, isn't it so interesting that those two countries, like, if I were to take a guess on what countries were going to go to war with each other next, it'd be India and China.
Oh, interesting. I don't know too much about their political...
Their borders. Hot, baby. It's a hot border.
I wrote that on a chalkboard when I was drunk in 2012.
Yeah, it's a hot situation going on at the Indian-Chinese border, baby.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's for another show, though.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to have to talk about that sometime. But he talked about that vaccine in there a little bit, and I just did not understand anything he was fucking saying about that shit.
The only reason that I felt like I had a little bit more understanding maybe than you is just because Dave Asprey talks a lot about this very in-depth biological stuff. Like a few, like 6 months ago, I didn't know what a mitochondria was. I didn't know like all these like biological terms
Spike
and how
protein.
spike proteins. I wouldn't have known what that was. But now because I've looked at my biology and my cells and stuff from a health standpoint, I kind of understood a little bit of what he was saying. Like when he said lipoaminoids and stuff like that, like I know what the Latin roots of those words were. Like I don't know exactly what he's talking about, but I get the idea. Like he's basically saying in one type of, basically what he was saying that in the types of vaccines that we used to have for a long time, there would be a small section of the virus's RNA in the vaccine. And that was, because of the way a vaccine works is it introduces a small amount of this virus or pathogen or whatever to you so that your immune system can learn to counteract it before you actually get a huge dose. Because what happens is there's viruses all over the place. You have viruses inside of you. You're coming into contact with them all the time. The only difference is that your system has time to adapt to it and neutralize it.
Make antibodies. Now,
when you get if somebody sneezes in your mouth and they have COVID or whatever, you're getting a ginormous dose of a virus that your body's never had to deal with before, and it doesn't have time, and it just gets overwhelmed.
That was made by China.
Yeah, allegedly. And so the idea is that they're doing the same thing. Now, with the second vaccine, it's a little bit different. They're not actually introducing portions of the virus to you. They're introducing things that they have developed that trigger the same kind of pathways. So it triggers the same kind of things that would happen to you with the virus, but it's not the virus itself. And so those are that's the difference between the two vaccines he was talking about. The mRNA and the other one, I can't remember, the adeno vaccine or whatever he said. So it's very complicated science shit, and that's why we need scientists. Even though I'm not way praise science, because they constantly prove that the last guy was wrong, but that's why we need them there to keep proving that the last guy was wrong, because otherwise you just keep holding on to what the last guy said.
Just put eyes on it.
I mean,
just keep an eye on it.
They definitely come up with a lot of innovations that help, right? And then so maybe vaccines are one of those things, but that shit is just tricky to me, man. Bret Weinstein, he's a scientist of some sort.
Yeah, he's you can look up his Wikipedia page. It'll tell you his official title or whatever, but he's a biological chemist or some crazy shit like that.
Put his credentials up.
So we'll have it in the video. You'll see, but he's full-blown scientist.
Interesting. But yeah, I found this thing where they're talking about vaccines. Are you guys vaccinated? Getting a vaccine?
I am not
vaccinated. I was actually going to ask this earlier. You guys haven't been tested for COVID, have you?
I have.
You have been tested.
I have one COVID test.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you've had one now. Have you been tested?
Yeah, I've had one once.
Okay, so we've all been tested once. Negatives.
Negatives.
Yeah, and I guess you were the most recent to be tested, because I didn't get tested until I got that job.
Oh yeah, mine was
2
months ago maybe.
Yeah, so mine was a little bit longer before that, and then yours was probably a little bit before that. But anyways, we've all been tested at least once. And I am not getting a vaccination.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it.
And there are two reasons for that. I don't know whether or not, I don't get vaccinations because I try to just be healthy.
Yeah.
And maybe if it was like, if Ebola ended up being like as bad as we thought that was going to be, and they came with an Ebola vaccine, I might have got an Ebola vaccine because Ebola was melting people. So that shit was fucking people up. The only reason that Ebola didn't become a thing is because it killed you so goddamn fast. So it's like that I probably would have got vaccinated for. But I think that like this disease doesn't really seem to affect a lot of people, and the people it does affect, I don't feel like I fall into those categories. Yeah. If I catch it, we'll find out. But that's just how I feel. Yeah. But I have two modes of thinking about this vaccine because it's like, one, it seems very unsafe in the idea that you're going to take a vaccine that was rushed. I mean, it was rushed. It was a rushed vaccine.
Yes,
They've never developed and put a vaccine out in this time period.
My mom says that, and my mom says, yeah, that's my source.
She's an averagely intelligent
mom. But that they've been actually developing this vaccine for quite a few years. Like they were saying, like in the whole thing about the Wuhan laboratory, right? The whole reason you're doing those types of things is to preactively create vaccines for different things. So
for diseases that can't get out unless you let them out.
This vaccine has been studied for a long time when it comes to like a coronavirus vaccine. Not this particular coronavirus, but to creating coronavirus.
Yeah, they weren't
vaccines.
starting from scratch.
Like they just like
this brand new thing. So that's true. But still, even I'm basing it just on the idea that the amount of trial, just because they were developing it, doesn't mean that they didn't rush the trials, which is really the part that I'm talking about them rushing. Normally, you have to have multi-year trials where you are injecting these things into real human beings and seeing what happens to them in a semi-long-term way
over a couple of years
before you're allowed to actually give it to mass numbers of people. And I like that idea. I think we should try things on a small scale before we implement them on a large scale. And so that's one reason why I'm like, that's the other reason why I'm like, I'm not going to get this vaccine, because it's just like, seems highly suspect that they were able to make it so well, so fast. And if it's true that they did, and it's not fucked up and it's totally fine, then I'm thinking like, then we should probably be able to make these vaccines faster anyways.
They also don't incentivize getting the vaccine in the sense of you can take your mask off, because they say on the CDC's website, get vaccinated and then keep your fucking mask on and wash your hands and social distance because you can still spread the virus.
Yeah.
And it's like,
so what's the point of the vaccine?
Well, Bill Maher kind of pointed to this too a little. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it's just that seems, I don't know, usually like with like smallpox, if they give you the vaccination and you catch it, like one, you can't catch it, so you can't spread it. But with this one, it seems to be like, you can still catch and spread.
It's all still the same. We just got you.
Yeah, it's all the same. We
just injected you with this thing.
Yeah, these little nanobots or whatever the fuck they slip in there. But I'm just saying, like that to me, I just didn't quite understand that because I don't know a lot about vaccinations, but. Man, like,
I just got educated on it. Bill Maher pointed a little to it too, where it works a lot like the flu vaccine. And like he said, he quoted a number of like the flu vaccine can be as little as 10% effective. But I've heard different numbers. But the problem being with any type of vaccine like this is the virus mutates. So if you are vaccinated versus against a certain type of mutation of this, then when it mutates, you're no longer protected. And so like we've seen this in years. The reason you get a flu vaccine every single year is because you have to get the latest updated version that's effective against all these other types of things.
You got to get the new 2021 I vaccine.
Right.
Update and restart.
Which they say you have about a 50-50 chance of it being protective against the flu. And so that's personally why I can't buy into it either. I say 50-50. Now other people will say, that's 50% better chance than you. Fine. Hey, you assess your risk however you need to assess it. If you want to get a vaccine, get a vaccine. So, but for me, I'm just like, that just seems like a waste of my time. And for something that doesn't offer me that much benefit. A lot of you motherfuckers out here aren't wearing condoms for this very reason. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not offering you enough benefit versus the protection you're getting or whatever, right? Like, that's what I see as a vaccine. 50-50, it just doesn't do it for me. And then for that to just next year drop down even lower, because there's all these other versions of the vaccine. So that's why you still have to do everything that you would normally do. It's not like smallpox or something where you get the vaccine. There's only one straight. Like, there's only one thing. When you're done, you're done. So that's interesting.
So America wants to give out vaccinations to everybody.
Actually, we are now with the Johnson & Johnson pledge. We have enough vaccines by May, I believe, to be able to vaccinate every single adult that wants one.
When are we going to see coronavirus go away?
Well, I think that it's so funny.
If everybody's vaccinated, you know what I'm saying? Like,
it now becomes the flu.
It's endemic now. So you'll just have to learn to live with it.
Yeah,
It'll be around.
This is what people are pointing to, why we get to open up back now, why we get to go back to normal life, is because we have now established enough safety measures, i.e. tests, vaccines, treatments, yada yada, that we can mitigate the risk, which there might not have been so much risk in the first place. But I'm too not getting the vaccine for that reason. But we are the minority. Did you say you were going to? Or?
I am not. I feel strong and healthy, and if a virus enters my body will destroy it.
You must crush your enemies, see them driven before you.
Manifest those antibodies, baby. Just believe in it. School you fellas up real quick.
So, we were talking about how we were getting the vaccine, but we're actually not getting the vaccine, and we're in the minority here. So, first, we were talking about, they said Joe Biden expects to have enough U.S. vaccinations to cover every adult by the end of May, assuming that everybody wants one. But recent polling suggests a continued drop in the vaccine hesitant population as more and more people get vaccinated in the U.S. The past 2 weeks alone, there were 2 polls that show that just how much vaccine hesitation has declined. 55% of adults now say they want the COVID-19 vaccine as soon as possible or have already received their first dose. And that's up from 47% in January and 34% in December.
It's a sharp increase.
So yeah, it's more it's monkey see monkey do shit. It's like a lot of people were like that. They were like, wow, that vaccine came out quick. I don't know if I can trust that. And then it's been 2-3 months of people getting vaccines and not dying, and they're like, all right, I'm good.
Yeah, but the thing about this is that the people included in that percentage are also people who have already gotten their first dose.
Right.
So that doesn't necessarily mean that the amount of people who are hesitant about getting it are the reason for those increases. That could just be the people who have gotten the first dose.
Right. So then they are no longer hesitant about getting the first dose because they've got the vaccine.
But it's not stated whether or not they were hesitant beforehand.
Yes, it does. It's at 34% of those included. Like, it's not like they added that later. 34% of people had not had a dose or had no intention of getting one until they were hesitant, right? And then it went up to 47 and up to 55. So more and more people are getting vaccinated, and more people are willing to get the vaccination.
Next paragraph.
You can munch on it a little later.
Yeah, the next paragraph I love, though, because it says, while the percentage of hardline get it only if required or definitely not has remained consistent around 20%, the hesitant, let's see what's going to happen, has gone from 40 to 22. Like that's a big drop in 2 months that you see where, a lot of the people who are hesitant see Dolly Parton recently getting it on camera, or the president coming out and saying, like, even though I think it's a hoax, I got vaccinated.
Yep. Seeing their governors and everybody else get vaccinated, starting to
monkey see,
monkey do.
Monkey do.
But it's very interesting because there
2 months. Come on, people.
This is what they're talking about, though. There is this hard line, 20% of people who just, I ain't fucking with it. Yeah. Like, I don't care. I don't care who gets it. I don't care what you say. I'm not fucking with it. And it has not moved but like 1% in the last. And I just think that's that population, like you said, like, I'm very staunchly not a vaccinator.
Yeah.
Like, I don't do that.
That's the Hall and Oates. I can't fuck with that population. I don't fuck with that.
But a lot more people are coming around. And so here's the crazy thing. You were asking earlier, when do we get to go back to normal and stuff? They say to reach herd immunity through vaccination, scientists believe somewhere between 70% and 90% of the population will need to get a vaccination.
So now they want herd immunity? That's funny. Sweden did that from the jump. Sweden's popping, dog.
Yeah, they just
Oh, everybody other than us
got vaccinated,
popping.
or what?
I mean,
no, they just did herd immunity. They were like, don't do anything different.
Yeah,
go get the virus, and then you will be immune.
I feel you. I mean, it's just
it looks like seems like a real roundabound way to get herd immunity.
Well, no, they're trying to do it without the deaths. It's like you can get the thing, and then you still lose. 0.1%.
Is that a recognition by our government of how unhealthy we are as compared to the Swedish population?
Or maybe the bungling of the handling, like different approaches. Yeah, like you're saying, like if you look at U.S., India, and Brazil, we had a lot of deaths. U.S. being like more than Brazil and India, but them also showing like a poor response. And then you look at something like the Ivory Coast, or just other Australia, for example, another, I know the populations are different, but even like by population, like if you do it by millions, like 1 per million or something, a lot of countries other than those top 3 that I mentioned handled their response better and were able to do things like herd immunity, social stimulus packages to their people to lock them in their houses for, 90 days and just say, hey, here's the money.
We got you. Like, we'll pay
Tons of different approaches where America was like, fuck that, I ain't putting no goddamn mask on. I'm going in the Harris Teeter getting my eggs.
I guarantee you Sweden does not have a population of 350 million, so we're talking about a lot more deaths, and they probably have a different medical system too. I don't know if they have like a socialist healthcare system.
Great point. Brazil has less obesity than us.
They went with a different way. We're trying to do the vaccine thing, but it's interesting because I don't know if it's the 70 or the 90%, and like obviously they don't know either, but if it is the 90%, we're gonna have a tough time getting there because there's a
last
staunch 20% of motherfuckers who are just like,
we can get to 80% pretty easy, but that 90, you're gonna be dragging people out of the Appalachian Mountains, fucking forcing needles into their arm, and that's not gonna look good.
Hey, that was the interesting thing too, is because they said that is get it only if required. That's me. I'm not a definitely not person. I'm just like the mask. If they make it to where I like socially cannot do what I want to do, if they're like, hey, you're not allowed in this club unless you got the vaccine or some
Where's
shit.
your card?
Like,
true. There are places that are asking people if they have their cards now.
UK is a lot like that, where there's certain things you can't do.
I'm seeing it all over Facebook. People are like, I got my card.
I'm so contrarian with
you
this.
You get a card that says you're vaccinated?
Yep.
Oh,
little card.
No.
Little piece of paper that says that you got it.
I was thinking maybe they could tattoo something on my
maybe
forearm.
just like a serial number that they could just tattoo on my forearm. I think that probably be an easier.
Maybe just like a symbol
you can't
sew.
lose it.
Yeah, like a symbol I can sew onto the breast of my.
The thing is, the contrarian in me is like, I'm probably part. Like, if they start coming out here with the you're not allowed to come in here unless you get the vaccine card or whatever, like. I just refuse to shop here. Then that's gonna be what I choose to do. Like that would make me even more so want to not get it in spite of them. Just be like, oh, you don't want my business? Then I'll take it elsewhere. Thank you.
If it got increasingly more restrictive, do you think you'd end up in a cabin in the mountains that was mathematically perfect like the Unabomber, or do you think that you would eventually have to integrate into it?
I don't know. I mean, I tend to kind of feel like a cabin in the woods wouldn't be so bad now. So
he
it's like,
but he's gonna conform, because you even said that with the mask thing. It doesn't impede you too much, and it offers you, like, you just want to do what you want to do.
Putting on a mask is a lot different than letting some motherfucker inject me with some secret serum. Yeah, that's a totally different situation, buddy.
I feel you, because I'm not sure where I'm at either. I might end up in the mathematically perfect cabin too, if they're trying to shove needles into my arm.
This is the thing, though, is that it's not so much like, because people make the slippery slope argument, like, oh, well, today it's masks, tomorrow it's you can't wear things with the American flag, and then the next day it's this, and then that, and then it's like, yeah, but each person has to draw their arbitrary line in the sand for themselves. So it's like, you can't get mad at people because they didn't want to wear a mask and then did because they still wanted to be able to go to the grocery store and not have to buy everything online or whatever. But then, like, my line is somewhere around the idea of I have to get something of which I have to believe you is whatever is in it. I have to believe what you say is in it. And then I have to get that in order to just live my day-to-day life because you say so. Just based on principle, I'm against that. Not even taking into the account the idea that I have no idea what you're actually injecting me with. Yeah. So just based on principle, I'm like, I'm not fucking with that. I might have to go to Sweden.
The more they push it, the more hesitant I'll actually get.
Exactly.
Because already we talked about, for a lot of reasons, that I'm not necessarily sold on the idea that it's that dangerous of a virus. And then if they're so adamant on me also being vaccinated against the disease that I don't think is all that dangerous, then for me it just starts to raise too many questions of, like, why is this such a big deal to you that I have this thing?
We're in the 20% right now. I believe probably all three of us would end up in the 10%.
Yeah. I personally would. I think I personally would end up in the definitely not category. But, like I said,
yeah, because imagine if, like, we're talking about it in the terms of the coronavirus right now, but just like, can you imagine them saying, like, oh, well, I'm sorry, sir, you can't come into this establishment because you didn't get your flu shot this year.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it's weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't fucking do that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do that either.
That's
I'd be
weird.
like, oh, okay, well, you just You take solace in the fact that you'll never see me here again.
Yeah,
have a good day, sir.
That's super weird. I don't know. I watched this other thing on, this man. We've had this conversation on this man a couple of times because we thought he was a badass, but then our other homie was like, I don't know about that dude.
He
man.
is a badass, and he's also someone who doesn't know what he's talking about, depending on what he's talking about.
The Melinda and Bill Foundation damn near single-handedly cured polio. So I mean,
no. The people he gave money to through the Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation damn near cured polio. Bill Gates didn't do any of that. He just gave them money. Yeah. So I wouldn't ask him about the specific biological intricacies of his polio vaccine. I would ask the scientist if I wanted to hear about that.
I also think it's a bit strange, and I want to address this too, about his previous training sessions, on what's going to happen.
Yeah, how it's going to come about and all that stuff.
I don't want to get into pandemic area, but I want to say Bill Gates was running simulations about these type of coronaviruses getting loose and hitting the world in a pandemic.
He was literally the guy saying all this stuff was going to come about, and then now is the leader in all this stuff.
Vaccine talk and all this stuff. He's the Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, facts.
In the game.
Oh, okay.
For years,
watch that on your own time.
warned of a new virus that would cripple the world. This year, his predictions came true.
The damage economically and health-wise has been far greater than I would have expected with a virus like this.
Bill Gates, welcome to The Economist Asks. There is this big race around the world to develop a vaccine. You, the Gates Foundation, are playing a big role in this. Are we spending enough? And if not, why not?
Well, there are 6 efforts that are the furthest along, which will be in phase 3 trials by the end of September. I do think several of them will be successful, not just at the 50% level, but the 80-90% level in terms of blocking transmission and sickness. So, a little bit, the early ones may not be the best, and these characteristics are hard to measure, but I don't think that we need more constructs here. I think we have enough to be successful. We do need to finance these constructs so that we get them out globally, because that's the only way the epidemic ends. We don't
need any more competition. We just need to give more money to these couple guys
to save the trillions that
I just happen to sit on the boards of these people.
But why?
And let me tell you, they love giving politicians money.
Why aren't we spending the billions to save the trillions? When you talk to prime ministers, presidents, as I'm sure you do, why isn't this happening?
All the countries but the U.S. do need to think about why weren't they able to orchestrate early high-risk money. I mean, the UK did better over time. Germany did some things, but the U.S. is, thank goodness that BARDA, with all its imperfections, was there to move things ahead. AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson, Novavax, Sanofi, all of those will be in the $2 to $3 marginal cost range. So you'll pay a somewhat higher price in rich and middle income to defer the fixed costs of the development. But for the very poorest countries where you just go for marginal costs, these vaccines will be quite cheap. So, 10 or 12 billion total to buy the vaccine for the developing world would almost certainly suffice. But without the U.S. taking its leadership role, as it's done in most global health things, it's been hard to get that together. So that's why I'm hoping the U.S. in its supplemental bill or somehow will step up and lead here, because that's still that's what would really get it, so we get that full 12 billion and we're not financially limited in dosing the world. There's a lot of modeling nowadays that's saying that because of the infections where you do get immunity, and because of cross protection from other vaccines and coronaviruses, if you add the vaccine in, even at a 30 to 40% level, that may stop exponential spread. So that would be a very hopeful thing. Then you can imagine that by late 2021, you would have enough doses that you're almost done, but with just a little bit of spillover into 2022.
How big a risk is there that even if we have a vaccine, people actually won't get vaccinated?
Well, it's partly why we need trusted people to, make sure they share their view of what is the science here, what do we really know, and so that people aren't just acting on rumors. Fortunately, this isn't measles. We don't need over 90% of people to take the vaccine. We think an additional, it could be as high as 60%, but somewhere between 30 to 60% of the population taking the vaccine, if it's on the high end of the effectiveness range, which 1 or 2 of the beginning ones won't, but some of the 6 will be, then you'll just stop the exponential spread. We can get herd immunity even if there are certain parts of the population that we're not, for medical reasons, going after. There'll be an age limit. We'll see, do they decide that pregnant women are in or not in, or people with various other conditions. The key thing is it's got to work for the elderly.
Let's just go back to the emerging world and
ads in.
This entrepreneur brand logo was done by a top freelancer on Fiverr. Is simple.
The scale of damage that this pandemic is going to do, do you think that the worst is over there, or is the worst still ahead?
No, the worst is still ahead because their dependence on certain commodity prices in some countries, on remittances in the case of other countries, on borrowing, which they were getting, a lot of these countries were getting up to pretty tough limits. These are not countries that they can just issue debt like mad without feeling inflationary pressures through the exchange rate.
Their bankers aren't as smart as ours.
So they live in the economic world where money is not free. Also, they don't have the systems to get that money out in an efficient way. Sadly, some of it will go out
economic systems where their money isn't free.
Yeah, strange.
Kind of give the whole program a bad name. And so basically a lot of citizens of these countries are just left on their own with way less of a healthcare system, which has been incredibly overloaded, and less general government capability in education and justice and infrastructure investment, which everybody was looking forward to, now put off even more. And so sadly, like every bad event, the poorest in the U.S. suffered more than the wealthy, and the poor countries suffered way, way more than the rich countries, particularly the poorest in the poor countries.
Yeah, that's potentially the greatest tragedy of this, that even as the need is greater, we're turning inward, and the multilateralism is even less evident. Bill Gates, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I spoke with Bill Gates for more than 40 minutes about the global fight against...
Yep, but... he quoted some different numbers. This was obviously in August as well. He quoted some different numbers than that article did. But, I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about that dude and his whole, overactiveness in this, Like, I first thought, when I watched that documentary he had on Netflix, I was like, dang, this man's the shit. But then it's just like, you got to remember documentaries or...
There's always another side to that coin.
Yeah, you don't know who's funding the documentary or whatever. So
the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
I watched a large portion of the exercise he did before coronavirus that was about like a coronavirus pandemic. I watched a pretty good chunk of it. And it was like kind of a breakdown of it too. And it looked interesting. It looked like he was saying like, yo, this could happen.
No, he was saying. He was saying, yo, in the next couple years, this is gonna happen.
And like in their exercises and stuff, there was just so many correlations that it's hard to be like, well, he had no prior knowledge at all that they were looking at these types of viruses.
Of fucking
the Nostradamus.
Nostradamus, not Nosferatu.
Yeah, the vampire bloodsucker of
The word that comes to mind to me is grooming.
Yeah, he was grooming us.
I feel like he was grooming us.
Damn, you've been hitting some hard ones today.
True. That's the way. That's how it felt like. Because like you said, this man's been like, yo, it's gonna be this pandemic. It's gonna hit you hard. You're gonna need these vaccines. Don't you worry. We don't have the vaccines on deck for you. But and just I don't know. He's the richest man or one of the richest men on the entire planet. You never really know what's going on with those guys up there. But it's like even he comes out. He's like, we don't need any more people working on the situation. We just need to give these small group of people more of our money. And then they'll be able to handle this business and get it done for us. Even in there, another takeaway that I saw from that video was she mentioned that other vaccines have taken as long as 5 years to develop, but we got this one done in 8 months. It's just
he was also saying that like, 2 of them are probably not going to work long term, but the other ones out of the 6, you're going to have great results.
Yeah, right. Better than any other vaccine that we've ever had.
And the thing that gets me the most is that it's just like Chris Tucker said in Rush Hour 2, follow the rich white man. And who stands to gain in a global pandemic?
The rich white man.
Bill Gates seems to have gained quite a bit.
Yeah, he's definitely on.
The League of Extraordinary Corporations is going to benefit greatly. Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and Rupert Murdoch and whoever the fuck else is out there sitting on
this
whoever's sitting on Scrooge McDuck money are the ones that are going to benefit.
Well, and this is an economic foundational principle is that in times of crisis, you do have lots of people who can set themselves up to capitalize on that to become wealthy, but the people who get the most return from it are people who are already wealthy. Like and where the impact doesn't hit them so severely. During the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, Lehman Brothers was just extremely exposed. And they didn't get that little government handout, so Lehman Brothers went bye-bye. But some other people who were more friendly with some of the politicians did get that handout, and they are among the largest financial organizations in the world.
They're doing well.
And they did... The problem is that based off of the money that they made from selling those CDCs and all the bullshit mortgages and loans and shit, coupled with the small amount of losses that they undertook up until the time that the government came in and bailed them out, they actually made money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Goldman and Sachs made money in all of that. Even though they were hella exposed, they made money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the government came and mitigated their risk and
exactly
and all that stuff. But yeah, dude, you said, rich white man is really
you follow
holding
the rich
it
white
down.
man,
He's holding it down in this whole pandemic.
Don't they all seem to do that? It seems like, Bill Gates is really doing it from the medical side. Elon Musk seems to really be holding it. Now, I don't know exactly how white he is, but his name is very exotic. But it's like, if you, like, he's doing it from like the environment side. And, maybe Jeff Bezos will end up, now that he's stepped down as CEO of Amazon, to do his altruistic things that he wants to be. Yeah, like maybe he'll do it from the gender side. I don't know. But, I mean, it's just like, there's a trend. There's a pattern here, and it doesn't always end well when you look back on those pieces of the pattern from the past.
It's funny because in every one of these scenarios, it's like, I know who can solve this problem. Old white man. Like, he just comes and Superman's all these different things. Going to Mars, old white man's going to save the day.
But I kind of get it, though. I feel like that's why I resonate. And this is why I say, like, sometimes I try and put myself in their shoes. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be a billionaire, right? Why you want to be a billionaire, Rod? Because I want to do it from the mental health side. Like, nobody out here is taking care of people's mental health. And I want to be the guy who fixes that industry, And it's like, little Elon Musk, he just wants to go to Mars, And it's like, you can kind of do that when you've gained astronomical billions of dollars. You start sitting back and you're like, I have more personal wealth than an entire nation. I could do some things out here. What can I do? What do I want to do? Because you obviously there's nothing Bill Gates needs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what the fuck else does he need for himself?
He's vaccinated for every disease known and unknown to man.
And so he starts thinking like, I see this polio problem over here. It cost me a eighth of my net worth. Like, I'll knock that off the planet real quick, and I'll end up in the history books, So I don't know. Part of me wants to trust him, but at the same time, it's just so weird, Like Johnson & Johnson, those corrupt ass motherfuckers slide in at the last minute. They're like, hey, we want a little bit of this vaccine pie. We said we don't need no new constructs, but all of a sudden Johnson & Johnson's like, hey, we We want some vaccine money. Like, what's good? We want to do vaccines. You know?
It was good we got this trial.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that trial, though, it's looking pretty good. We might have to give these motherfuckers some trillions. Also, you made the statement about mental health, where, like, if I was a billionaire, you know, that's the angle I would attack. And I was going to make a Scientology joke, because that's what L. Ron Hubbard did. It's like, yo, that mental health shit you're talking about is actually thetans inside of your body.
Hold these metal poles.
Grab these metal poles and talk shit about your friends.
You tried while we record you and use the Batman.
Join my Navy.
You were asking, so what vaccine do we get? Well, I'll tell you which vaccine the Catholics are not getting.
Ooh, okay. Whoa. The Catholics?
Yeah, so there's been a huge debate within the Catholic community as of recent, because some of these vaccines are made from abortion cells.
Whoa.
Yes. And so the controversy began February 26th when the Archdiocese of New Orleans singled out the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, saying it is morally compromised as it uses the abortion-derived cell line in development and production of the vaccine, as well as the testing.
Whoa.
I mean, that's just good upcycling.
Damn, that's right.
I'll take your comments, people.
That's just organic compost. Jesus Christ.
I mean, if you're going to be throwing them away anyways, you might as well make a vaccine out of them.
You might as well do something with them.
Well, but I mean, dude, these motherfuckers will find a way to, these motherfuckers, but these people will find a way to throw some abortion into everything. They're like, smell like abortion over there. Get the fuck away from that shit.
I remember when they were talking about that shit being in Pepsi, and they were like, I smell some abortion in your Pepsi.
Can't fuck with that.
They're like, get that shit away from us. Like, dude, they won't even take it. Like, not that the vaccine has abortion cells in it. It's not like every single vaccine comes with a little abortion.
You can guarantee that every dose has at least 10% dead fetal cells in them.
But while
made with real fetal cells. Like, Jesus Christ, dude. This is fuckery. You sprung this on me. I was not prepared.
I saw the headline, and there was a bunch of them. There's about a whole handful of them that came together, and they were like, Catholic Church isn't fucking with that vaccine.
Did you make the connection between Johnson & Johnson and dead baby cells? I'm pretty sure they're the ones that make all your fucking
baby
wet
lotions
wipes.
and products. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Interesting whether they testing those baby wipes on, huh? Yeah.
The ones that didn't work, well, there's side effects.
So, I guess now they're kind of reneging on this, and they're saying now it's imperative that they do get it, and I guess they probably got together and were like, hey, y'all need to chill out over there, man.
Pfizer one.
We want to get.
God,
that's what they were like. They were like, we demand a morally upstanding vaccine for us. That's very fascinating. But that's just my little headline I came across with. That was interesting.
Any sort of sect of Christianity, especially the Catholics, coming around talking about moral standing. I mean, I hate to, I know that people change and everything like
weird
that,
like
but
that.
yeah, it's like, you guys kind of ran a couple of crusades.
Y'all murdered a lot of people.
You diddled a lot of kids.
Yeah, you guys forget about that?
You don't forget about the diddling.
Never forget about the diddles.
It's seared into my memory banks.
And then for y'all to come back and be like, you made that out of abortion. So it's like, wow.
Well, morally speaking, this is made from diddled boy cells. like, fuck out of here with your double standards.
That's, to kind of tie this into something that we talked about earlier, that's what made me so upset about with the protests and stuff. It's like, those were the same people who were like, saying that it was very imperative that we socially distance and everything and quarantine. It was all important to do that until racial justice was the issue. And then that usurped the other one. And it's like, well, I mean,
I can't keep up with y'all.
Exactly. It's like, man, you guys are flip-flopping quite a bit. It's hard to tell what side I'm supposed to believe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just like with them and gun control and stuff. They're like, we don't think people should be walking around with guns, but if you light the end of this piece of rope I have inside of this bottle filled with gasoline, I'm gonna throw it at that federal building.
Yeah, it's like crazy.
It's like you're preaching this one thing and living this
other thing.
Yeah, it's tricky.
And that's the problem with the rich white man too. Is like they preach like all this altruism and stuff, but then on the backside you find out like Jeffrey Epstein's got a whole fucking child sex ring island, and it's like, fuck.
With a temple. The man had a temple. Who's he praying to?
Yeah, I mean, it's just scared. So that's why I can't trust him. I'm like, I don't know if I can trust you, Bill Gates. I don't know if you created the coronavirus or if you're trying to save me from it.
I don't know if you flew on the Lolita Express or not. I don't know.
I don't know. He literally could own the Wuhan lab for all I fucking know.
This is the man shipping us those Transformers. Yeah.
So interesting, but. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not getting it. Not for the moral standing, but for my own just a skeptic reason.
Do you think that Trump supporters are likelier to get it now that Donald Trump has come out and said he got his in January before handing?
I think Trump supporters are likely to do whatever the fuck Trump does. Those guys, like you said, it's like a cult of personality.
Get it and not tell people.
They just love him for some reason. Whatever he says.
If we're making the distinction that the only criteria that they're falling under is that they support Trump and are like adoration of Trump and everything.
His base, I'll say.
Well, because his base is made up of a lot of people.
Yeah, you're right.
So it's like, I didn't vote, but if I could have, like, if I could have like a magic wand and make anybody the president out of those two people, I would have picked Trump over Biden. Not because I thought like he would have been a better president, but it was kind of fun.
I would have picked Vermin Supreme, but
yeah. I mean, he's funny, but I don't know. I don't really want to practically get him into office, but because he said he was going to give away free ponies to everybody, and I'm like, as satire. But if he actually does it, then that actually hurts me. But at that same time, like, there's a lot of people who supported Trump just because he was more in line with their values. So like, if it's just like the people who are all wrapped up in the cult of personality of Trump, then yeah, I'd imagine that they'll they go Mar-a-Lago and they stay at the Trump Tower and they fucking
get a little rub down in the sauna.
They just grab women by the pussy.
Move on them like a bitch.
I'm sure they just do all of those things.
They just move on them like a bitch. That's what they do.
I'm pretty sure those are the deplorables. But someone like me who would have you could consider more of a Trump supporter than a Biden supporter, like, I don't give a fuck who gets the vaccine.
Yeah.
Like, even people like, if fucking David Goggins and Dave Asprey and all these people came out and got the vaccine, I still wouldn't get it because I think for myself.
Yeah,
like, just because I like some person's content or what they say about health and shit, like, doesn't mean I believe everything they say.
That shit is so whack to me when they march somebody out on TV and they're like,
"Yep,
give it to me.
Look, Tom Hanks got the vaccine." It's like,
it's safe. It's like, come back to me in 10 years, bro. I don't want to fucking hear shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's safe today and it kill you tomorrow.
Coming in prime time, Vaccination Live, starring The Rock, Oprah, and Ryan Seacrest. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. We don't need that. We don't need an episode of The Voice where the chairs turn around and there's healthcare experts inserting fucking vaccines into their arms.
But that's what Bill Gates said. They said, well, what do we need to do to get everybody to get back? He said, well, we need trusted people to come out and share their trusted opinion on whether or not. And I'm just like, you realize we all trust different people, right? What the fuck are you talking about?
Like, we need the first episode of Love Island to be everybody getting the shot.
Vaccine.
And let's not forget, I saw that video of that nurse get that vaccine and then she fainted in that interview.
That was a bad look for them. They were
was a bad look. I'm not saying that she fainted because of the vaccine, but it certainly didn't help their cause.
That was the unveiling of the Tesla truck when the
hit the windshield.
Well, I was listening to the Elon Musk interview with Joe Rogan, and he was talking about that whole episode and everything, and he was like, "Yeah, we probably shouldn't have used the same truck."
Yeah,
because he was like, what they were doing was that they were like smashing it with fucking steel balls and like hammers and stuff, and then they used the exact same truck for the public demonstration, and I'm like, you probably should have used a fresh one.
Yeah.
I would have
only hold them so many times.
Yeah, like after one too many steel balls, it's gonna break.
Yeah, for sure.
That's him playing around with his shit before he unveils it and then it falling apart. Yep, big dummy.
100%.
It's not a good idea.
But like I said, I mean, I don't know. I'm interested to see how we all move forward from here. As we do see some of the governors in the states opening up and whatnot. It's like I'm definitely for that. I'm going to concerts. I've been excited. Hey, we had the Super Bowl. Everybody seemed to come away from it fine. Like
Tampa Bay,
it's all that. It sucks that it seems the one thing that does affect me the most is going to be the last to go, which is these fucking masks. Like, that's going to be, it seems like it's going to be a while until you get to just operate in normal society without a mask.
And it's become such a weird accessory that every single person has the unique mask set up to them. You know, some people have a face shield, some people have an M91 or whatever, some people have a neck gaiter. So
some people
become,
match it per outfit.
Yes, and some people put multiple layers on.
Yes.
There's
Have you guys
so
seen those
much
ones?
going on.
Have you guys seen those ones that you can buy online? You send in a picture of your face, and
then,
then it prints like a picture of you with a mask under
so
your
you can
chin.
fuck with people.
So you can fuck with people. So like when you walk in and somebody just sees you, they're like, "Oh, sir, you need to pull your mask up," and then you pull it down. You're like, "Oh, it is
face.
up."
I've got a secret underface. Gotcha.
And so it's like
I'm still in the search for my perfect mask.
I
can't
want a
find
full
one.
ski mask made of glass. I want the whole fucking front thing
I've seen
to
that.
be.
I've
I
seen that
can't
with
wait.
the fucking
I don't want it to be like see through. I want it to be like some sort of cool, maybe like just a video playing or something. I'm just saying, like, I want that shit to be like. You remember when they had rims? And then they got spinning rims.
Yeah.
And then they got rims that play pictures on the side of your fucking wheels.
Yeah.
I'm the pictures on the side of your rims type of face
do me a
mask
favor.
guy.
Go to Dave Asprey's Instagram page for me real quick. If I'm not mistaken, he had one of the most interesting masks I had ever seen. And I was like, well, I might just have to buy that. Just a little bit of alien for you.
What the fuck?
You never seen the alien?
Attached to?
It's just it's just like a regular mask. Like you can see the legs are the handles that hold it to the back of your head and everything.
I'm just saying, like, where's the trunk go? Like, what does that connect to? Just it wraps all the way
wraps
around
his
your shoulder.
head. Yeah, it's like the tail. When I saw him walking around in that store with it, I was like, well, that's fucking funny.
Yeah,
that's just great. You know, because for those of you who don't know what you're seeing, that is the face hugger alien that implants the small alien inside your stomach from the movie Alien.
Yes,
and then it bursts out of your stomach.
I can't wait for Kanye to design one of these.
Yeah, like
it's gonna be like a space moon.
It's gonna look like melted marshmallows.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
It's gonna have robin's eggs spattering.
I really love the dichotomy of when that Republican woman that was new in Congress, she was getting all grilled in the House and shit. What was her name? Marjorie Greene or whatever?
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She had that mask that said censored while she was talking. Yeah. I thought that was pretty good.
And that's the thing, too. I remember when masks first were brought in and all the employees had to start wearing them when I was working at the grocery store in the first 6 months of COVID. And I remember, like, people pretty quickly adapting to, I can wear anything I want.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
You know, like all that kind of stuff. And then it became political statements. So then all of a sudden they came down hard and were like, solid colors, no patterns.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had one that had my brother's band logo on it. It said Annabelle Lee. And they were like, buddy, you ain't promoting
at my
shit.
bowling alley, they just gave you a new one of those blue surgical masks every time you came in.
I just went and got one every day. But what's funny is they didn't make you do it until you got on the clock. So I would walk into the building without a mask on, turn the corner, go to the desk, get a mask and put it on. And people would still be like, he's walking in without a mask.
Yeah. That is the guy who eats every day with a paper plate. Like, for the love of fucking God, get a reusable mask. Like, and stop polluting the fucking planet.
This is one of the worst things that I've noticed from this is, like, I used to walk around, you see McDonald's trash, plastic bags floating around. Number one thing I see littered on the street, masks.
Yep, in every parking lot I ever go in, there's just a mask. Somebody just stepped out of their car and a whole fucking 5 masks falls out of the floor.
And they just leave it there.
Yeah,
it's like, that's America for you.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe everybody follows the route of Texas. I don't know. Maybe we do get this herd immunity shit by the end of the year, and then everybody's like, all right, fuck it, or whatever. But I wish that shit would go away real quickly.
The dominoes are certainly falling, like Florida from the beginning kind of held out, and then as soon as Texas did it, I heard about Ohio, I heard about Arizona, I heard about Mississippi, and it's like, well, Ohio's it's just like a marijuana thing. It's only a matter of time for these other motherfuckers.
Yeah, everybody follows suit. Right,
except that Empire of Ethiopia.
Oh,
they didn't go down.
They're gonna stay strong. There's gonna be California. Fuck that.
Yeah,
fuck
they're
out of
not
here.
going down.
Fuck out of
fucking
here.
Seattle.
Like, we'll be good over here. We're mask forever, baby.
Yeah,
mask forever.
Mask life.
There's something else that we haven't talked about yet, but I mean, we have to save it for another episode. But these things tend to move in waves. You know what I mean? If it is a pandemic of some sort, or like you look back to the pandemic of 1918 or whatever, like that shit moved in waves. And they say like the second and the third wave tend to be more deadly than the first and whatnot. And I think we already seen our second wave, but Who knows what the third wave
I would also
looks
say,
like, or
you know,
if it comes back or whatever. We'll see.
A lot of dominoes that could be potentially knocked over from what's going on. If they happen to prove that this was created in a lab and that lab was in Wuhan, you know, and then India and China have their conflict start to escalate, or North Korea shoots some missiles. Like, there's a lot of dominoes that could fall that coronavirus did not set us up for success for.
I feel that.
Facts.
That's so true.
Damn.
That's so true. But hey, look forward to that $1,400 coming straight to your bank account, baby. Let's go.
Bidenbux, Stimmy time.
All right, hey, we appreciate your time, internet, and we'll see you again for the next episode. Peace.